Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us today. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015. This is a regular voting and also a special meeting of the Prescott City Council. That said, we're honored today to have Rabbi Adele Plotkin that will lead us in the invocation. Thank you for being here. And
My pleasure.
Councilman Blair, you'll be doing the pledge.
I've been practicing, Mayor.
Honorable Mayor, council members and staff, community members and friends, today, as we gather here, we pray you, our representatives, are ready to face the challenges of governing this community with clear vision and cooperation with those who can make resources available to us, while still enabling people to enjoy the activities they love, such as the rodeo. May you continue to keep a watchful eye to prevent environmental erosion and other associated risks. Indeed, the agenda for today shows several examples of such cooperation. Among others, you are cooperating with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality to monitor water quality in the wake of the rodeo activities. And also, my own personal favorite, you're working with the FAA for safety equipment for an aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle. May you be blessed with the foresight to continue in these efforts, not only for the benefit of those living here today, but also so that these benefits may continue to be available to our children and future generations. May you be granted the wisdom, compassion, and creativity to go forward to find common ground to build a solid future for us all. Let us now all affirm these heartfelt desires, each in our own way. So may it be.
Okay, when we're doing the pledge, while we're doing that, think about what it says and what its true meaning is, if you would, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Kirkendall.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cudneo.
Here.
Councilman Arnold.
Here.
Councilman Blair.
Yes.
Councilman Lamerson.
Here.
Councilman Lozelle.
Here.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Here.
Craig, any announcements today for the good of the order? Okay. We have one proclamation today. JC, come on down.
You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Come on up here.
Oh, okay.
We don't want you to say anything. Today's proclamation is the world's oldest rodeo week. It is from June 29th to July 5th. Whereas Prescott Frontier Days Incorporated has presented the world's oldest rodeo during the 4th of July celebration annually since 1888, and whereas Prescott Frontier Days Rodeo is celebrating its 128th year as cowboy capital of the American West, and whereas Prescott Rodeo is led by 1981 bareback world champion, 5-time Prescott champion, and Pro Rodeo Hall of Famer inductee J.C. Trujillo, and whereas Arizona's second largest parade, Prescott Frontier Days Rodeo Parade, entertains thousands each year during Rodeo Week. And whereas the rodeo is a collaborative effort that installs civic pride and supports Old West traditions, cowboy culture, and values. And whereas Prescott's world's oldest rodeo provides adventure and daring that makes it famous, and whereas the Prescott Frontier Days oldest rodeo financially benefits businesses and citizens of Prescott as well as those surrounding communities. And whereas all citizens and guests of the city of Prescott are encouraged to enjoy and support Prescott Frontier Days Rodeo and the world's oldest rodeo, now therefore, I, Marlon Kirkendall, Mayor of Prescott, do hereby proclaim June 29th through the 25th as World's Oldest Rodeo Week.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for this. You know, it's 128 years. It's a really great honor for all the past generations of businessmen and rodeo fans in Prescott to keep an event like this going for 128 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, let's move into the consent agenda. Item A through F. Any comments, questions from the council on the consent agenda? Nothing? Nope. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, move to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please. Okay.
The vote is 7-0.
Okay, moving to the regular agenda. Item A, when you're ready.
Item A is a public hearing and consideration of an application for a new Series 12 liquor license from Rexford Jason Moffett, applicant for Bill's Grill, located at 333 South Montezuma Street. The application was properly posted for the state-mandated 20-day period. No petitions or protests were received during that period, and it has cleared planning and zoning and the City of Prescott Police Department. I believe there is someone here to represent? Yes.
Mr. Moffett? Come on down. Let everybody take a look at you here.
Hi, I'm Joseph Madden.
Oh, you're not Mr.
I'm the
Moffett.
general manager of the restaurant.
Okay.
And I'm an agent on the application as well.
But the licensee will be
I'm representing the licensee.
Rexford Jason
Yeah.
Moffett? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the council?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please. Okay, do we have a motion to
Passes unanimously.
approve the liquor license?
Mayor, I move to approve for liquor license application number 121-33622 for a Series 12 restaurant license for Bill's Grill located at 333 South Montezuma Street.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, you're down out of here.
All right, thank you.
Good. Item B.
Item B is a public hearing and consideration of 2 applications for acquisition of control for Series 9 liquor store with sampling liquor licenses by Andrea Dahlman Lukowitz, applicant for Safeway Incorporated, located at 450 White Spar Road, and the Safeway located at 1044 Willow Creek Road. The city may protest the acquisition of control within 60 days based on the capability, reliability, and qualification of the person acquiring control. The police department has reviewed the application according to state law and has found it to be in compliance.
Okay, just a question.
There is no one here.
This is an application for the acquisition of control. A little different. Tell us about it.
Well, the Safeway has been purchased by, let's see if I have it here, Albertsons, basically. And it's the company that owns, both of them owns Safeway and Albertsons, so they will be acting as sister companies, and keeping, the licensee will remain the same, and their signs and everything will remain the same.
So they will own the previous licenses and control those licenses?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
I don't think I've ever been to Safeway. I would have known about it if there was sampling. Is that something that's new?
No,
Is that on the current license as we speak today?
yes,
Okay.
Do we have somebody here representing
we do not,
the applicant? We do not?
no.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, was the application stuff just all done by mail? Did somebody come in?
It was done by mail.
Okay. Do we have a motion for the approval?
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please. Okay, now let's
Passes
move to
unanimously.
approve the applications for acquisition of control. Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve the acquisition of controlled liquor license application number 091-30019 with sampling for Safeway store number 274 at 450 White Spar Road, and, oh wait, these are separate ones, and nothing.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, now you want to go to the next one?
Mayor, I move to approve acquisition of liquor or controlled liquor license application number 09130023 with sampling for Safeway, store number 245 at 1044 Willow Creek Road.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Passes unanimously.
Can you add to that to put Steve on the mailing list?
Yes.
Okay, item C.
Adoption of resolution number 4301-1510, approving an amended joint funding agreement with the United States Geological Survey for aquifer storage and data collection with the Big Chino Subbasin.
Hi, Leslie.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. On March 25th, 2014, Council, approved a joint funding agreement with the United States Geological Survey for a component of the monitoring outlined in Comprehensive Agreement Number 1. The separate agreement among the city, Salt River Project, and Town of Prescott Valley for geophysics and gravity collection to further define aquifer storage and structure properties. The agreement with the USGS is being amended to include the continuation of data collection at sites in the Big Chino Basin, formerly funded by the Yavapai County WAC, and to add an additional geophysics survey line in the Verde Headwaters area. The parties to the comprehensive agreement support the USGS proposal that's dated April 7th, 2015. And regarding financial impact, this amendment number 1 identifies an increased project cost of $195,300. The USGS is reducing the cost to the parties by making a contribution of $111,000, $154 from their cooperative matching funds, which is a common practice that they do. The net cost to the parties for the amendment is therefore $82,146. Keep working it down to our costs. The city's proportionate share of this amendment is $29,627.60. Prescott is the financial agent for this agreement, and the current balance is available. We have the account currently contains $1,433,912.09. Briefly, to understand this this amendment, this is an updated map. You do have one as part of your packet. And what the project has assumed are these green dots, basically. That was the former WAC equipment that was in place. As you remember, the WAC was interested in science, building the science in the area to make better decisions on water supplies overall. And because they had existing long-term records and they were well cited, the parties felt it was best to assume those equipment to tighten the network. As I said, this is an updated drawing from what you see in your packet today, but it helps you see the other components with SRP that I brought forward a couple weeks ago. And the next slide. Thank you, Mark. Wonderful. This is the geophysics portion. So just to get your bearings, and I'm sorry I didn't do that on the first one. This is the Paulden area. This is the highway right through here. And Area 1 is over here, considered the headwaters. And this line right about here is the new addition. They found, well, I shouldn't say they found. More geology work has been done in the area, and there's a fault line through there that they thought was worth investigating to tighten up the model. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on this item.
I have one, Mayor. Leslie, now that the WAC is not out there any longer, these kind of agreements are going to come to council, and the monitoring and the work that we're doing in the water world, the presentations were given to the WAC and then looked through and then brought back to each council. Have we changed that process to where this council is now going to get some feedback from those reports as they become available?
Right now, as soon as this project kicked off, this comprehensive agreement number 1, I uploaded Big Chino, updated it basically on the city's website, and as things are approved, such as this one, we load it up into the announcements. If there are more conversations that need to be held at the council through presentation, I'm happy to provide those.
At what point will we start seeing reports coming back from the Big Chino, from USGS and Salt River Project and all the other things that we're spending money on?
For the contract states that an annual report needs to be presented each year, and so that was presented and it's up on the website, or it was compiled, I guess I should say, and put on the website. It could be presented. The first year was mostly financial and getting everybody in order and starting to get the contracts together. So I think your question falls in the lines of when the data starts coming in, what is it telling us? We'd like to know, and we can bring those forward when those items occur. So we're still in the very early stages, and you have to have more data sets to start pulling things together, the multiple pieces of equipment, and having answers.
So what do you suspect, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I think it's important to the folks out there that follow the water issues. You talk about an annual report. Are we talking about the end of the year report? Are we going to get one like in December that recaps, and it doesn't have to be specific information because it is new, but recaps the process and what we've done up through the year end? Or is it going to be done in July based upon our budget?
Our documents were put together that we'd have it done in September. So last September, the first one was done.
Okay.
Then we'll have a second one, which will be this coming September.
All right.
And then in between SRP, we've had this agreement. They do a seasonal report, so they have a provisional seasonal report. So I think we're going to have quite a few.
Okay.
And once we have a good basket, then we'll bring it forward.
And those will be put on the website as well, correct?
Right.
Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe this goes hand in hand with Steve's question, Leslie. I'm not a geologist, okay? Cause and effect consequences or potential consequences to a multi-million-dollar project over the years. And I know you've been online for quite a while now, and I know we've been working with the various different governmental agencies, but a fault line, what are the potential consequences to the thought processes that were developed a number of years ago with regard to importation from outside the AMA into the AMA, and what could be some of the potential consequences of that fault line? We're talking about millions of dollars already to ratepayers and potentially millions more to ratepayers and taxpayers of the city. And I think we need to keep them abreast of all the things that are contiguous with this particular thing that's going on.
Okay, if you don't mind me using this map here. So this area 1 is the headwaters area, and then up in here is the actual Big Chino subbasin, and the city is located right up in here. So this fault line is of interest because of the interest that everybody's had about how water moves towards the Verde headwaters. So a fault line in that area just informs us for that area. It's not going to necessarily inform us in this area. The gravity work and the geophysics up in this area will tell the city more about potentially the siting of wells, additional siting of monitoring, as well as the monitoring that is key in this area as well. I'm not sure if I exactly answered your question, but this has been a long...
You sort of did. I mean, is there potential information that's coming down the pike that can kind of help ADWR understand the cause and effect consequences of continuing to issue exempt wells, et cetera, unmonitored exempt wells that may in the future challenge Prescott's right to the water that was negotiated back, that created, I don't know, whatever it was, 4555E, whatever that was, that came down through the legal processes. The citizens here have paid a lot of money and given up a lot of water out of the Colorado River for a water right out here in the hinterland someplace. And I'm very concerned over the consequences of the state's inability to work more closely with the city to ensure that our water rights are not challenged in the Big Chino.
And I guess I could offer as a closing comment is that the city was looking at this water supply back in the 1970s. Water takes a long time. There's changes that happen along the way. We're going to keep marching to find the best solution that we can have for all parties related to water. So we keep in contact with the Department of Water Resources. This water, as you know, is within the city's decision order. It went through administrative hearings. And the outcome of the city getting ready to pump ultimately led to working in a good partnership with the downstream water right holder, SRP, the other partner, Prescott Valley, and water is something you work on for quite a while before it becomes available in the pipes.
Thank you. And that particular decision and order, if I'm not mistaken, if history reminds me correctly, SRP was in on the negotiations from the get-go. It wasn't one of those things. I mean, 4555E just wasn't a brainchild of the citizens of Prescott. This is something that ADWR, SRP, half the planet out there came up with as a resolution, because I don't think at this point in time the citizens of Prescott can go get our water back from Scottsdale.
Right.
I mean, did I miss something here?
It's a fairly intricate history of water.
All right,
We'll keep working on it.
Thank you, Leslie.
Every aspect.
I have a kind of along Jim's lines. Are we aware of, are there any major active wells in that area at all now that are pumping? And would it have any effect on the work that we're doing as far as looking at water tables?
Well, you have the historic ranching and agriculture out there, and some of it's still active. In terms of I guess it depends on how you quantify as large. But once again, I think the state's watching water levels out there. We're developing the model that's needed to look at this more closely, which everybody felt was needed. So once again, unfortunately, I'd have to say we just have to keep marching forward a little bit, step by step, and continue to work with the neighbors as best we can, and work with the state, work with the community, and the downstream water right holders, which, that's nothing new,
Yeah. So while we're going through this process of testing and analyzing, there is water being pumped and used in that area.
Oh, certainly.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? Comments from the public, questions? Okay, do you have a motion?
Mayor, recommend action to move to adopt resolution number 4301-1510.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, vote please. Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, item D, we've been requested to withdraw that from today's agenda. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do we need to reschedule it, or is it an open end when they'll come back when they're ready?
It's open-ended. There is no indication of when or if they may come back.
Okay. So moved. Okay, item E.
Item E is a preliminary plat, SP 9846, extension request for Mason's Ridge. Property owner Rex and Lucy Mason, site APN 105030108, lot area 9.69 acres, zoning SF18.
Good afternoon, George.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request for an extension of a preliminary plat that was originally granted in 1998. The plat was submitted, reviewed, and approved by City Council in '98. Typically, a preliminary plat is good for 1 year under the city's regulations. In 1999, the Masons asked for an extension of that plat, and they were granted that extension. That extension lasted until 2007. They came back again and asked for an extension further 8 years, and that's now due basically in the next 2 months. So they have come back again once more asking for an extension of the preliminary plat. There is a benefit to extending a preliminary plat under these circumstances in that the plat was approved with the assumption that groundwater would be allocated, not our alternative water supplies. The lots that are proposed meet current requirements as well as they did at that time.
George, can I just interrupt you a moment?
Certainly.
There's a benefit to whom?
to the city's water supply.
Okay, yeah, say that loud and clear so people aren't out there thinking that we're giving away a bunch of water. Thank you.
No problem. The 13 lots that are proposed on the preliminary plat would have to meet our final plat requirements when the plat finally comes in for review and approval. At that time, the final plat is submitted to the state, and the city's groundwater allocation is adjusted by that amount. So at this point in time, staff has provided you a recommendation for approval of the extension for 8 more years. I do know that we have a representative of the property owner if you have a question about that. And with that, I will conclude my staff report.
Okay. Council, questions?
I do have a question.
Shoot.
George, I'm a little confused about the Masons' request for water rights in perpetuity as opposed to the statement in the staff report that a water services agreement is not necessary. Can you explain that?
Leslie may be able to help with that as well, but the water is tied to the preliminary plat. So an extension of a preliminary plat that was originally watered with groundwater prior to 1998 or during 1998, a continuation of that plat, an extension of that plat extends the water with the plat. I don't know of a mechanism where you can extend the water without the plat. So if the plat can be extended for 8 years, the water is extended for that same 8-year period.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, council? Any comments from the public? Dan, is that a thumbs up? Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve an 8-year extension of preliminary plat for Mason Ridge on July 31, or to July 31, 2023 in perpetuity. I mean, the way this is written in my deal here isn't the same as what I just heard it. Just so you know.
Okay, your motion.
Yeah, to approve the extension of, this doesn't sound fluid.
I don't think it's in perpetuity. I think this is an 8-year term is what it is.
Staff recommendation was for 8 years.
The recommended action on the staff report that was submitted to you as part of your packet reads, move to approve an 8-year extension of the preliminary plat for Mason's Ridge until
Okay,
July 31st.
what was your comments with regards to water in perpetuity being requested?
Water travels with the plat.
So we have to do this
Yes.
every 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 years. That sounds really convoluted, but okay, I'll try this one more time.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. I move to approve an 8-year extension of preliminary plat for Mason's Ridge to July 31, 2023.
Second.
You nailed it, Jim. Okay. Okay, motion is seconded. Let's vote on item E.
Item passes unanimously.
Okay. Move along to item F.
Item F is the approval of annual support and licensing agreement with Tyler Technologies in the amount of $110,443 for the Munis financial system.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, this agreement with Tyler Technology is for their Munis financial product, which is our ERP system, handles all of our accounting, our utility billing, our sales tax, our general ledger, our payroll and HR, all those items. And this is the annual contract renewal. It's approximately 4.8% higher than last year, which is the typical increase you see in these type of contracts.
Okay. Question, Mark. You mentioned that this is your sales tax software also.
A portion of it is the sales tax software.
Now, with the state taking over that burden, is that going to relieve?
If that module is no longer needed next year, we will discontinue that, and we've done that over the years with this product. As we've adjusted where it's implemented, we remove modules or we add a module if we need to. So depending on what the state ends up doing and how we are able to track the reports from local businesses, we either will or will not need that module. That module represents approximately about $4,000 of this total bill. So it's not a large module. It's relatively simple.
Very good. Anyone else? Comments from the public? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve the annual support and licensing agreement with Tyler Technologies in the amount of $110,443 and authorize city staff to execute all necessary related documents.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please. Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. When you're ready, item G.
Item G is approval of amendment number 1 to city contract number 2015080A1 with SCS Engineers for Phase 2 design services for the Sundog Transfer Station floor slab remediation project in the amount of $34,673.
Mayor and Council, good afternoon. The city owns and operates the Sundog Transfer Station, which was originally constructed in 1991 and expanded in 2006. And the transfer station handles approximately 200 tons of solid waste and recyclables per day and was originally designed to process about 250 tons per day. Each day at the facility, solid waste and recyclables are brought into the facility. They're dumped onto what we call the floor, and then they're pushed across the floor into the pit area where they're loaded into trailers for transportation out to the landfill or to the recycling facility that we're using. Everyday use, abrasive materials, etc., has worn the floor down to the point where it's desperately in need of repair. The loadout floor and the cantilever require repair, and the pit edges and the armoring around them also need to be repaired or replaced. Back in January, I came before you for approval to conduct an assessment of the floor to see exactly what needed to be done to fix the problem. And you approved the assessment, and SCS Engineers came out and did an assessment, and they subsequently provided a design concept memorandum to us that had 2 remediation concepts in it. And my solid waste superintendent sat down with the project manager from the Public Works Department and went over the report with the engineers, and they have found that one of the remediation concepts is doable for our transfer station floor to repair it. Condition information was reviewed and in determining to move forward with the Phase 2, and it's delineated in your council report. In November of 2014, the city had issued a request for proposals for this multi-phase project, and SCS Engineers was deemed to be the best qualified to do the work for this project based upon the criteria in the evaluation. Hopefully, if approved today and we move forward with the design, it'll take about 6 months to get the design plans together, at which point we can move forward with construction to repair the floor. And the estimated construction cost right now is preliminarily estimated at about $225,000 to fix the floor. SCS Engineers may be on board if we proceed forward with construction at that time to help us with construction management services at that time. And we do have funding budgeted for the project in the Solid Waste Fund, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Steve?
I heard the word repair. Are we not truly going in and replacing it and making a new floor?
I believe, Councilman, in some areas the existing concrete will be cut out and replaced, and in other areas it might just be capped over.
And is there a life expectancy on this floor? And along with that comment, what kind of warranty would be provided to that surface?
I believe usually construction warranties are for a year. I think if stamped set of engineering drawings, the stamp is warranted for 2 years, so if there's design issues, then we can go back against the engineering firm for a couple of years. But the intent of this repair is to get another 20 years out of the floor at least.
Thank you.
My question, I read through the, I think we paid $25,000 prior for the assessment.
Yes,
and it was difficult for me to separate between some of the assessment and some of the work that they're proposing for this contract. And there was some repair work done in '06.
That was the expansion that was done in '06. There was the original transfer station had, I believe, it was the 2 bays on the north end, and we added bays on the south end. There was 3 bays added and a push wall. But this is actually repairing around the pit area.
Yeah.
I don't know that they touched anything in '06 around the pit area.
Okay. A question, and it comes from Chris and I having conversations several times about how we handle waste and also the recycle. It's not uncommon today for everything to be brought in and separated in one facility and separate the recycle and what's left. And some of the reports that I read indicate that many times we do a better job of separation than the customer does. And that a lot of the material sometimes that we bring in might have been recyclable if the customer had known as well as we do on how we handle it. Maybe you'd like to comment on it, but is it time that we look at this project that maybe sometime in the future that the city would need to do the separation rather than the customer and maybe save us having to run one series of trucks all over town to pick up a small portion? Yeah.
Mayor, I think I understand your question. I don't believe the floor slab repair has any bearing on how we're collecting at present time. There's two schools of thoughts on how to collect solid waste. Sometimes people are fans of having one can. The customer doesn't have to know how to recycle. They just stick things in it, and then you do the separation back at the facility. Then there's the other school of thought where actually if you educate the public, you do get a higher quality product in your blue recycling container versus if it's just a single stream, one container type of operation. We do have workers at the transfer station so that do go through the loads. We call it mining the piles. So as time permits, when garbage loads come in, either from commercial customers or from ourselves or even our own residential loads, they're there, they're pulling out any type of recyclables that they can pull. So we don't cherry pick just cardboard when we do that or whatever commodities are getting the best prices. We actually pull whatever recyclables we can pull out of those loads so that we are maximizing our tonnage that's being recycled. Going forward into the future, I'm not sure if there's enough data out there to make a decision on whether we want to go to one container or not, but the tonnage is essentially going to still be the same that we're collecting. So we would still have to go out with a number of trucks in a given day to collect anything that was put out that day. Did that answer your question?
Chris, did you have any?
No, Mayor, I just wanted to say I kind of hung in there because this was just really about doing the floor slab, and I know we've had a lot of conversations just between each other on business models and the way we do it, and I'm not leaving you hanging here, but if this conversation was going to go this way, I would have stepped out for potential conflict of interest. But in 6 months or maybe outside of this building, if anybody would like to share information on how we do this, I'd be happy to do that. And I mean, me and Stephanie have had conversations on the different ways we do things, and it makes us both better. So,
yeah. We're always looking for efficiencies within the division.
Yeah.
That's one thing we do. And if it's more efficient, if it turns out if there's some more studies that come out that show us better ways to collect, it's not just on the collection side that I'm looking at. It's also further down the road how we dispose of things, because the way we do it now is very expensive, and it involves hauling garbage like 20 miles one way. And there's some new emergent disposal options coming up that look very inviting.
Yeah. Well, some of the magazines that I read into certain areas, they're getting up to 85% now recyclable out of the 100%, which lowers cost at the landfill and a lot of things. And plus the fact, Chris works for about 50 cents an hour for the city. So we get his expertise a lot cheaper than a consultant. So, Charlie?
Mayor, my only follow-up comment, just looking at the staff report, is by the time we get done with the design, we're into this about $65,000 to fix something that we've identified as a problem. When we initially voted on the scope, I anticipated that their scope would be a little bit more inclusive. I wasn't expecting to see a $35,000 design bill and then possibly see a construction management bill coming into the future too. This would be an example of something where I think going into the future, trying to accomplish some in-house with Public Works would be appropriate. Certainly, I'm very supportive of us using consultants for our building maintenance plans and all those different aspects, but all of a sudden it's added up to $65,000 to fix something that if we just look at it, we know we need to deal with.
Councilman, it's a good point. This is a specialized field, though, for repairing transfer station floors. It's not like just going out and repairing a sidewalk panel where we could take it out and re-pour it. There was actually some core drillings that had to be done. There's rebar in there. They actually looked at the floor to see what work really needed to be done so that it would last into the future. So it is a little expensive, and I only mentioned the potential for the management services down the road in case we go that way, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Comments from the public? Any experts in the public that wants to give us some advice?
No, Mayor, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to leave you hanging, but I got 5 months left, and I would not do well in prison. It would be bad.
Mayor, I move to approve amendment number 1 to city contract number 2015-080A1 with SCS Engineers for Phase 2 design services for the Sundog Transfer Station floor slab remediation project in the amount of $34,675.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. When you're ready, item H.
Item H is the adoption of resolution number 4295-1504, approving city contract number 2105-196, an intergovernmental agreement with Groom Creek Fire District providing the fire apparatus maintenance services and repairs and sale of city fire apparatus number 910. I believe that is 2015-196.
Mayor and Council, back in 2010, the city was approached by Groom Creek Fire District requesting that the city's Fleet Services Division help maintain their fire apparatus. And back then, there was a city resolution that was entered into that set forth the terms of service and also the reimbursement agreement for that type of work. And since the doing the repairs at the Fleet Services for the Groom Creek Fire District equipment, they have realized some efficiencies because they've had reduced out-of-service times. And the city has been reimbursed for work for their equipment to the tune of about a little over $58,000 over the years. And then back in August of 2014, I had came forward with a request to auction surplus property. One of the items that was identified was fire apparatus number 910. I was asked to remove the fire truck from the list and try to find something local for the fire truck so that we had it available to us within the community. Groom Creek Fire District did express interest in acquiring our truck, and since that time, conveyance of the fire apparatus, it would enhance continuing support to the city of Prescott under the existing automatic agreement, or the automatic aid agreement that the city has with Groom Creek. In order to effect the sale of the fire truck and also to correct some minor administrative items that were in the previous agreement, we are recommending redoing the intergovernmental agreement with Groom Creek. It'll clarify a few things. It will also affect the transfer of the truck to Groom Creek, of truck 910 to them. And also, we have put in some language, so in the event that Groom Creek ever decides to get rid of truck 910, City of Prescott will have right of first refusal to have the truck come back to us if that's what the city desires at that time. And Chief Light is here, and so is Chief Bentley from Groom Creek Fire District. If you have any questions for them, they're available. The city is reimbursed 100% under the intergovernmental agreement for any type of work we do on the Groom Creek apparatus. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them at this time.
Okay. Charlie?
Mayor, thanks, and Stephanie, thanks for bringing this forward. Obviously, I think this is a positive for the community. When the two fires sparked off in Walker, I think it was last year, Groom Creek was one of the first responding units there. So this is a great way for us to work together, and I'm glad to see that our fleet services can be of service there too.
Yes, thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, and thank you for getting this done, Stephanie, because watching the auctions the way I do, fire trucks really don't bring anything at auction, and I think this helps beef up our if you look at any fire that really starts in this area, it doesn't start in Prescott. It starts from somewhere else and comes rolling in. And, I mean, look at what we're replacing. Groom Creek, we're replacing a 1979 Ford F600. So, you know, I bet they were wondering if that sucker would start on their way out the door, you know. So it's good to have this there. This is a good thing all around. And I'm glad you put in the things where if they ever just decided to sell it to make some extra cash or something, the city's protected that way. So thank you very much.
Jim, were you wanting to say something? You were not. Okay. Anyone else, Council? Comments from the public? Okay.
Mayor, move to adopt resolution number 4295-1504.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item I.
Item I is approval of, 1, acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration 95% funding grant in the amount of $380,000 for an aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle. 2, acceptance of Arizona Department of Transportation 2.5% funding grant in the amount of $10,000 for the vehicle. 3, purchase of Rosenbauer Airwolf Class 3 ARFF vehicle from Rosenbauer, Minnesota LLC in the amount of $343,519.34, and authorization of the mayor and city staff to execute all necessary documents to effectuate the foregoing items.
Okay.
Mayor, honorable
John,
members of City Council, good afternoon. On December the 2nd of 2014, the City Council approved the submission of a 95% grant application to the Federal Aviation Administration for the acquisition of the aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle. Aircraft rescue and firefighting affectionately is termed as ARF. It's not a description for a canine. The ARF vehicle is utilized certainly at Prescott Airport. If I can ask the City Council to look at the slide here, the vehicle that the FAA has authorized for purchase for the City of Prescott is the ARF Index A vehicle, which is on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is the existing vehicle that the Prescott Fire Department utilizes. Basically, the primary difference between the two vehicles is water. The ARF Index A has a 500-pound potassium acetate capacity as well as 250-plus pounds of AFFF, aqueous film-forming foam, which is the same capacity as the ARF Index B. The ARF Index B has 1,500 gallons of water that is contained within the vehicle itself. The ARF Index A vehicle has 500 gallons, so there's a difference of about 1,000 gallons or 8,000 pounds of water. The Prescott Fire Department provides these ARF services at the airport as required under the Federal Aviation Administration or regulations for air carrier services, that is for the commercial operating services at the airport. However, the Airport Enterprise Fund funds one engineer position through the Prescott Fire Department to operate this specific ARF vehicle on a 24-hour per day, 7-day-a-week basis for emergency support that provides support to all of our tenants, all of our flight departments, corporate airlines that are corporate aircraft that do fly into the airport, as well as for the U.S. Forest Service and any of the tenants or any of the users at the airport. So this FAA grants provides funding for the ARF Index, again, Category A. The Category B can, even though that was purchased again through FAA funds back in 2001, that is a year 2001 vehicle, it can remain within a city's asset and utilized by the fire department as potentially a backup for the ARF Index A vehicle, or it can be used for some structural, which has occurred in the past for some electrical components because of the foam dispensing capacities, or for any other capacities that the fire department so chooses. Again, I'd just like to brief on the capacity for each one of these vehicles on the next slide. And this is, again, per the Federal Aviation Regulations, so I do apologize for all of the text. According to Federal Aviation Regulation, an Index A is a vehicle that carries 1, 500 pounds of a sodium-based dry chemical, and 2, 450 pounds of potassium-based trichemical with water. So the Index A, R for aircraft, is identified for specifically for Prescott, if you will. It's for aircraft less than a length of 90 feet in length, which is 99.9% of all the aircraft that operates at Prescott. The Index B, which is our vehicle that we have in our current inventory out at the airport, again, is the same thing as item number 1. It carries at least 500 pounds of sodium-based dry chem and 1,500 gallons of combined AFFF, which is the aqueous film forming foam. So right now, again, the Index B, it requires a minimum of 5 daily commercial flights that are aircraft between 90 and 126 feet. And I can tell you that the Prescott Airport does not currently have the infrastructure or the capacity to handle this type of aircraft. I can give you an example of these type of aircraft on the next slide. So if you can see at the very top, the Index A is for an ATR 42, which is up to a 70-passenger commercial flight. Beechcraft King Air, again, which is a larger turbine aircraft. The Bombardier commercial regional jets, if you will, a 100 and 200 series, have a capacity for up to 75 passengers as well. So there's several other that are identified in the Index A. The Index B capacity is an Airbus A320. Those type of aircrafts are commonly flown for domestic routes with American Airlines, United Airlines, and US Air, if you will. I'm sorry, American Airlines again. The Boeing 737, the 300 series up to the 800 series is commonly flown by Southwest Airlines, so they have a capacity for up to 150 seats. I just wanted to again reiterate the fact that the Index B can handle an aircraft that is not utilized and the infrastructure is not available at Prescott to handle the Index B, and the FAA has identified the Index A as a vehicle that is serviceable and is mostly functional for an airport of the size of Prescott.
Can I just pop in here, Mayor? I just wanted to ask, the carrot on the stick that they were offering, that 30-passenger plane, is that still covered under A?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. Yeah, the 30-passenger plane is well within. The 75-passenger is some of the type aircraft that are samples, and so 30-passenger would be well within that, sir. Yes, sir. In regards to the actual procurement itself, the details and the specifications were in conjunction with the fire department, and I want to thank the Prescott Fire Department for assisting with the specifications for this specific ARF Index A truck. Based on those specifications, we advertised for the staff advertised for the actual product. The bids were opened in May 14th of 2015, and the summary of the bids came in. There was a Pierce Manufacturing that was lower. However, they were not qualified. They were rejected and deemed as non-responsive based on their request for exceptions to the contract requirements. So the lowest responsible bidder is Rosenbauer out of Minnesota. They are a specialty firm that focuses only on ARF vehicles, aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicles. They have another industry or another company, if you will, that constructs the structural ARF vehicles for the structural vehicles for Rosenbauer. I can state that the actual FAA grant is over the cost of the actual ARF vehicle, in hopes that in addition to the ARF vehicle, the grants will also fund various radio communications, various equipment, some of the items that we can actually include inside of the vehicle that is grant eligible. So there is a little bit of available funding, if you will, from the federal side, so that if it qualifies, then that's what we can actually stock the vehicle with. So the actual FAA grant, which is 95%, is $380,000. The ADOT share, which is 2.5%, is a $10,000 $2,000, and then the city share per this request is 2.5% as well, so that's $10,000. The lowest, which totals $400,000, the lowest quote that was qualified that came in was $343,519.34. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Charlie got one.
Mayor, thank you. And John, thanks for the presentation. You know, from our numerous discussions, I don't necessarily believe that the government's one-size-fits-all description fits what the city of Prescott needs at the airport. I'm glad that we got the grant. I'm glad that we're going to be acquiring a piece of equipment that we can use at the airport. My concern still is about the amount of water capacity that this smaller unit has, the amount of time for a secondary unit to arrive. One question I do have is, how long will 500 gallons last in an initial response? And what is the fire department's plan if additional water is needed and 73 is unavailable?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council.
Hi, Chief.
Councilman Arnold, the actual deployment of the apparatus, Index A, will last about 2 minutes worth of firefighting using AFFF and water. It's based on a 250 gallons per minute delivery system. That said, so you can kind of do the math in your head, the 1,500 gallon capacity, which is accustomed with the Index B, runs about 6 minutes if they reduce the flow. The secondary plan for water, as it is with our current apparatus, as it would be with this, is to run a commercial assignment, which involves three additional fire trucks responding to the scene to add that added capacity. In and by itself, one aircraft rescue firefighting vehicle, if we catch the fire early, we have a reasonably good chance of success. However, if it's blowing and glowing or a high impact, those usually end up with poor outcomes, regardless of how many apparatus you have available. It really is scenario driven. So hopefully that answers most of your questions, sir.
It does, and the timing is still where my concern has previously lied. In addition to that, have we evaluated, or are we sure that 500 gallons of water is enough to foam the runway in the event that a plane is unable to use its landing gear?
Actually, runway foaming is rather draconian. It's not done in any of the major metropolitan municipalities anymore. What it did, as much as anything else, was created a sense of security, I think, for the pilot more than it did as far as an effective extinguishing agent. 500 gallons does have a less capacity, so the square footage of a fuel fire, and that's how the FAA through Part 139 arrives at the calculations to determine the sizing for their particular ARF vehicles.
And last but not least, I assume that the old ARF vehicle will still be stationed at the airport. Would the engineer, assuming that it's not something where it's instantaneously happening, would the engineer have the authority to decide based upon the situation which vehicle to respond in?
Yeah, I think the operational direction would be if one is more favorable for a positive outcome, that particular apparatus would be used. We would continue to maintain both. And the one thing this does add is capacity. We've had some instances, at least in my last year here, where we've bumped a few things with the current vehicle and the vehicle's become less than serviceable. It will provide us some degree of redundancy that in today's world we do not have.
So again, with that, I'm glad that we've got the grant. Thank you for the work that's gone into it from everybody's perspective. I just am going to continue to reiterate my concerns about going with a smaller vehicle. Thank you.
Understand.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Chief. John, you're two capable professionals, airport management and firefighting. Bottom line is we're getting a $343,000 piece of equipment for 10 grand. Is that right?
Yes, sir. At the maximum 10 grand local.
And 10,000 is coming from airport or general fund?
Oh, general fund. Is that right, Mark?
Okay. Thank you.
Chris?
The new truck can also be run by one guy, just like the old truck, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I see the way the nozzles are. On the old truck, could they operate it from inside? or do they have to get outside the truck?
Yeah, both the Index A and the Index B are remote controlled, basically, that they're operated from within the cab. The Index A is more of a toggle switch that, at least the ones I've familiar with, the ones I've seen up close and personal, that they throw a toggle switch. It has a mounted pump that will deliver the agent through that nozzle that's on the front bumper area.
Mm-hmm. And if we keep the old truck, we have to really stay up on the maintenance of that. What kind of liability does it put us into having it as a backup? If we have a backup and for some reason they run it out and it doesn't work, does that set us up for more, or how do we
I'll kind of give you a fire chief's answer versus perhaps a risk manager's answer. And there is an inherent risk anytime we operate our vehicles that you could have a mechanical failure that creates a situation with an untoward outcome. Our ideals kind of lend ourselves. We check out the vehicles regularly. Both of these vehicles would be maintained capable of frontline status regardless of which role is playing, and with that I think from an operational capacity it would enhance our ability to have some built-in redundancies.
And just talking, John, with the length of the planes and such, would A cover a slurry bomber or no?
Most of the slurry bombers that's in the fleet right now, yes. As far as the C-130, that we actually grant a waiver to operate in and out of the airport when they leave at full capacity. Again, they're slurry bombers, so most of the time if they have an incident, they normally put themselves out.
I knew that was coming when I asked that question too, by the way, but I was thinking the return trip, but thanks.
Steve. John, quick question. I would assume that over the long haul, I don't know that our chief, that an assessment's been done on maintenance. That's usually a critical issue as you have the vehicle year after year after year. I would suspect that with a smaller vehicle, you could probably buy 6 tires for one of the tires that's on the other vehicle.
Yep.
So is there a huge maintenance difference in cost effect on those vehicles as we look down the road further?
I think your biggest extreme on that would be the current age of the existing fleet. It's 14 years old today, or this particular time in space. I think that would create bigger challenges from a maintaining perspective. Fire trucks at their maximum are 25 years. That is the out-and-out max because everything else falls out of compliance. So there are some maintenance challenges. Actually, most of the ones that we've faced in recent times have been dealt with at the local level, and we've not experienced any long-term outages other than the ones that I'm ashamed to say, but we might have self-inflicted.
On 6th Street, maybe?
No. Out with some bollards, believe it or not, but that's a different discussion.
But this older truck that we have now, it has new tires and whatnot, and it's very serviceable, correct?
That's correct, and it meets the needs of the community to this day.
Okay,
and it will into the future as well.
Thank you.
Steve, we just put new tires on the old one, and that was what?
Like 18 grand, wasn't it?
Yeah, $13,000 or $14,000 for, and they had less than 1,000 miles on them.
I believe that those concrete runways and concrete taxiways tear up tires.
Yeah, in fact, I think the old truck has less than 1,000 miles on it.
I thought it was closer to 5, Chief.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah.
Maybe well, it's a mile to Circle K, so multiply that by.
It's been in service for 15 years, so the newer vehicle will certainly have 15 years of advanced technology, certainly at its capacity as well.
Quick question. I'm familiar with the Rosenbauer. This is an upfit on a General Motors or a Chevrolet chassis on the new truck. Do you get a choice of which chassis you prefer that you're?
In order to comply with federal procurement regulations, what we did was what we specified was an Index A according to the FAA guidelines, the Part 139 guidelines. That actually, I want to say, opens the door for procurement for many different companies to be able to provide a quote.
Yeah,
So
looks like
we could
this is
not
a Ford
specify.
chassis from the appearance here.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. Anyone else?
I've got
Comment? Yes,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
John, can we meet all the conditions of the FAA grant? In particular, do we have a workplace safety policy banning texting while driving?
I can answer that. Yes, we do. In fact, operation of cell phones, which would be the medium used for texting. I believe city policy, at least when I briefed in last year, they told me I can't talk and drive at the same time, so I don't talk and drive at the same time.
Is that correct, Mary? Okay. Second question, I think I noticed in here that the FAA offer expiration date is June 19th.
It was actually extended to July the 1st.
Good.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Any comments from the public? Yes, sir. Come on down.
Richard Steelman.
Good afternoon.
Sequoia Drive here in Prescott. I'm curious, Mayor. I think Manager Cox was mentioning something about the runway rating, and that we make an exception for the slurry bombers because of their weight.
I think that's probably true.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
It is. The reason I bring that up, I got a lot of time in 130 Hertz. The Airbus 320 and the Boeing 727-200s, our runways are not rated for those aircraft, correct? Because of weight? Well, my thought was, if we're ever going to tap 3/4 of the population of this country to come to Prescott, we're going to need an aircraft that can come in from the east a pretty good distance, which means a pretty good size aircraft, to come into Prescott. I mean, we're not on a major rail line, we're not on a major highway, we're not on a major river. We're kind of secluded, and a lot of us like that. But people who would come to Prescott to visit us, to come here for a week or two, enjoy what we have, are going to want to fly in here eventually. That's where our growth is going to come from, and a lot of it to the airport. We have to be able to provide those kind of aircraft a place to come into. We've got a great asset here, you know, with the city and our airport. But if we're going to close the gate on that, we're kind of hurting ourselves. That's my thought. You know, so if the slurry bombers can come in here and use that facility, can't we find out what it would take that we could get a sizable aircraft? Because, you know, I'd love to see one of our representatives make a connection with an airline that we could bring something in from the east, so that we could have a flight a couple times a week from the east where people would be able to fly into Prescott. I think that's our future. I could be wrong, but just the same. But without that runway rating, that ain't going to happen. It'll never happen. And we're going to be bound to these smaller aircraft, which might be sufficient. But then again, you know, I think you're doing a great job. I'm an advocate for your work out there. We've got to get some air traffic from the east. When you got the majority of the population of the country live in the east and we're just flying west, that ain't working. That's not a futuristic plan. We've got to get air traffic from the east coming into Prescott. So, whatever you need. That's my comment. Thank you.
Mayor and council, may I respond?
Certainly you can.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, and those are very valid. We have been having some discussions, certainly with the existing commercial airline operator, in order to start an eastern corridor, which would start through potentially Denver, potentially DFW.
Oh, yeah.
We do recognize the fact that, you know, we are not a Sky Harbor, will never be a Sky Harbor,
right.
And they handle most of the intercontinental flights. However, if we could address a few regional flights. Certainly, if that's what the demand is from the community, such as yourself, those are the goals that I'm certain that the mayor and the city council does support that. So, yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think in our $52 million upgrade plan, I mean, the runways do get strengthened and they do get lengthened.
I'm not sure you'll do it for $52 million, but it's part of the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that would increase the size of the aircraft, the capability, it's only going to pay big dividends for Prescott.
Yeah. If you notice through what we're doing, it costs a lot of money, and we're able to come up with 2.5% or 3% or sometimes 5%. we have committed, this council has committed to the FAA that we will fund our portion of whatever funding they may come forward with as part of the master plan.
Yeah.
And but they're limited by their funding too. So, but it's part of the overall. I think we're committed to moving the Prescott Airport.
Yeah, I know. 2 to 3% growth annual for Prescott would be fabulous.
Well, Jim's got to find us some more water.
It sure would. But I think the airport.
Thanks for your comments. Yeah. Yeah, the gentleman. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Marty Huffman. I'm the ARF Western Regional Manager for Rosenauer.
Good for you.
Manufacturer of your vehicle.
Yeah.
Just wanted to bring up a couple of things to help the council understand what the capability of this new vehicle is going to be for the airport. One is you were asking earlier about the capacities in terms of water and foam and dry chemical. I think it's important to let you know that there's, over the past decade, there's been some substantial increases in the way that these agents are delivered on aircraft fires, and one of them is through a product called Hydrochem. And that's the simultaneous expelling of the agents of the vehicle in one shot, so you can combine AFFF with the dry chemical entrained in one stream, which increases the effective firefighting power of the vehicle. So although it's a 1,500-gallon vehicle that you currently have, the smaller vehicle actually has a greater firefighting capacity because of the technology that's applied behind the vehicle. So I just thought I would just get you a little bit more education on that. There was also some question, I think, about the joystick controls within the truck. It's a one-person vehicle. It's a joystick. It's completely run by a separate pump engine, so the vehicle has full mobility in addition to a full pumping capacity. And that's an intentional design on our part to make sure that the vehicle can function in any kind of condition that you may put it into. The other thing that might be interesting for you guys to know is and now I've lost my train of thought, is in terms of the capacities of the vehicle itself. This Index A vehicle, matched with the type of aircraft that are serving the Prescott Airport, is perfectly matched for what you're doing, and you're going to gain a substantial amount of firefighting time with this new vehicle. I think it's important to note that we are the largest manufacturer of fire trucks in the world, and we've been building these trucks for a long time, and I think you're about to get a quality piece of apparatus, and I thank you for your time.
I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
What chassis do you prefer for this piece of equipment?
Now you've got my train of thought back. This is an F550 Ford chassis on this truck, and the reason that it's a Ford chassis is because the Chevy chassis and the Dodge chassis do not have the axle carrying capacity to carry the weight that's loaded on the back of this vehicle on the chassis. So if you look across the industry, whether it's myself or Pierce or any of the other number of manufacturers that build this sort of vehicle, the F550 platform is the preferred platform because it has the axle capacity to handle it.
So as long as our facilities people can work on a Ford 550, they can work on that.
They have F550s in their fleet right now, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Mayor, just one follow-up. We've had the opportunity to actually buy quite a few of your vehicles, and I know our staff likes them, fleet services like them. We've been very pleased. The reviews specifically of this vehicle online by their departments is fantastic. My underlying concern is that our nearest next station, if the underlying structure engine's gone, is anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes away. And so when I'm listening to 2.5 minutes of firefighting time versus 6 and looking at supportive engines, those types of things are where my line of question comes from.
Okay, well, I can address that because I'm a retired airport firefighter. I have 25 years of experience as an airport firefighter. So I can tell you that if you do not have that fire under control within 2.5 minutes, the incident is over.
Okay.
So you need to get your job done quickly. Airport rescue firefighting as opposed to structural firefighting is an entirely different world. Everything needs to occur rapidly and it needs to occur effectively. And the old FAA rule was that 90 seconds was the preferred time frame within response and extinguishment of the fire. So 2.5 minutes is actually giving you a little bit of buffer. And if the agent is applied correctly and within the right amount of time, in other words, a response is made, and you get on top of the incident right away, you probably have a good chance of getting the fire out.
Wonderful. As part of the acquisition, do you all provide some additional training on site for our engineers?
Yes. Okay. We'll be sending a technician out when the vehicle's delivered, and he'll spend a week out here instructing the guys on how to operate the vehicle.
Wonderful. Well, you've allayed some of my concerns. I've done a lot of research into this and talked to a lot of firefighters about it. But certainly, it's going to be an asset to the city going forward.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sold.
Anyone else? There you go.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Sandra Smith. I'm at 701 White's Bar. My question is for both the chief and Mr. Cox. I'm the pilot's kid. I know about alternates. Are we an alternate for anybody? Because we've got Sky Harbor, we've got Las Vegas, we've got Denver, that are all within an area where if a plane was in an emergency situation, would you send them all up to Flagstaff or would you bring them in here?
As far as commercial service operations, it really is up to the air carrier to identify the alternates, if you will. The only way I think that the Prescott Airport could be an alternate is in the direct flight from Sky Harbor to Las Vegas. Most of the other alternates would be identified as far as underneath their flight path. And I can't give you the answer as far as if the airline has actually chose Prescott as an alternate for a direct flight or not.
Ooh. I'd hate to find out at the last minute.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, need a motion.
Mayor, move to accept the FAA 95% funding grant in the amount of, excuse me, 1 second, sorry. Got a little ahead of myself. I was already looking at John's next item. Thank you. Funding grant in the amount of $380,000 for the ARF vehicle. To accept the ADOT 2.5% funding grant in the amount of $10,000 for the vehicle. Approve the purchase of the Rosenbauer Airwolf Class 3 ARF vehicle from Rosenbauer, Minnesota LLC in the amount of $343,000, $519.34, city contract number 2015-209, and authorize the mayor and city staff to execute all necessary documents to effectuate the foregoing items.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good job, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item J.
Item J is the approval of 1, acceptance of an FAA 95% funding grant in the amount of $3,539,500. 2, acceptance of an Arizona Department of Transportation 2.5% funding grant in the amount of $93,144.73. 3, award of city contract number 2015207 for electrical improvements at the Prescott Municipal Airport to Rural Electric Incorporated in the amount of $2,858,192.80 for authorization of services number 9 for construction phase services by Dibble Engineering in an amount not to exceed $352,599 and night work for the electrical improvements project.
Good afternoon, Mayor, honorable members of City Council. Thank you. If I can ask for the attention again towards the overhead projector, I could identify as far as the physical relationship of what this project consists of in accordance to the airport. Where I have the pointer right here is the future home of the next ARF vehicle, the Index A ARF vehicle. And this direction here is southbound towards Willow Creek. So this is our primary entrance in McCurdy Drive at this time. What this project really consists of is an airfield electrical vault upgrade. Right now there's a current electrical vault that was completed in the late 40s, I want to say. There's a generator that's located in this vault location that was the stamp on it, from what I understand, was dated in 1957. We still have to maintain that every week and test that for emergency purposes. We're confident that with the purchase of a new emergency generator, if you will, through this grant, we won't have so many maintenance or so many concerns regarding the operation of a piece of equipment that's over 70 years old. This is actually the location of the existing vault, and there's some potential opportunities for some expansion in this area, so we do need to clear this area out. There's an existing mini vault location that really supports power, if you will, to the alternate runway, the alternate parallel runway, and some associated taxiways and some ramps. So we are actually going to be putting the larger vault in this area and running all of the associated lines in support of both the runway system and the taxiway and apron and infrastructure system. This project will also consist of controls that will be operated out of the vault directly to the air traffic control tower, if you will, so that they have the capacity for manual overrides for operating the lights as necessary. So you can see by the green dashed lines here is the actual configuration of the existing lighting system and the underground conduits, and what the actual design plan is for the future conduits and the future infrastructure development. This project also consists of lighting of a taxiway. Right now, this taxiway right here that is operated through the terminal at times for the commercial service operator does not have lights. It's actually got some retroreflective markings out there. This was an identified area in subsequent FAA airfield inspections that this taxiway system does need to be lighted if it's going to support commercial operations. The other visual aid, if you will, is in this blue square area that's identified as a segmented circle. And a segmented circle is it's a visual identification for the pilots that fly in, especially the transient pilots, that give them a visual indication when the control tower is not in operation of what the flight patterns are. So they know which runway, with the relative winds, if you will, which runway and which pattern that people could actually utilize departing any one of the 3 runways. This project also would require some night work. Our biggest concern, obviously, is impacting the primary runway here, so we would like to request that part of this work be done overnight, which would also require some City Council consideration. This project was identified by the FAA and ADOT as one of the highest priority projects regarding to airfield safety improvement at Prescott. Most of the electrical vault equipment has certainly exceeded its useful life. The bids were received for this project on May the 21st of 2015. All bidders acknowledged the receipt of 2 addenda items that were necessary on there, including the 10% bid bonds. The apparent low bidder, which is Rural Electric Incorporated at $2,858,192.80, was actually 15% under the engineer's estimate, and the lowest next bidder was approximately 7% more, so it was under the engineer's estimate. This project included some additive alternates, if you will. Additive alternate number 1 and number 2 was specifically for a separate grant-funded project that was going to add some additional visual aids. The determination at the time was because it really had direct relationship with some airfield electrical components. We included that as bid alternates 1 and 2. However, after review of the bids and the results of those, both of the add alternates were recommended for rejection from both FAA and ADOT, and there would be a potential for future bid phase for that specific project. The other component of this project is actually construction administration services. Currently, the city contract number 2014-029A9 awards Dibble Engineering, if you will, for airport engineering and design services. This would be another authorization of services for Dibble to perform the construction administration services in an amount not to exceed $352,599. And the other item basically is for to request that some night work be performed between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Monday through Saturday to assist in the completion of the project in certain areas that we would feel it would be much safer to operate at night.
Steve?
Two questions. Number one is a question I usually ask you, and I didn't see it in here other than the state has the authority to any time inspect the work that has been accomplished. Who is going to be the on-site inspector while the construction is ongoing? Is it going to be our city inspectors, state inspectors, FAA inspectors, Dibble?
Dibble Engineering will be recognized as the construction administration, so they will be the ones that will be performing all the inspections, all of the assurances. They will be receiving, all of the contractors' submittals and reviewing them, as well as reviewing any of the wage compliance issues as well.
Okay. And the other comment that I have is, I'm quite sure I know the answer, but I want to make sure. We do a lot of work out there on asphalt, and I see those yellow lines cutting across the runway. Are we going to drill and press conduit underneath instead of cutting the runways?
Yeah, I apologize, I did not mention that. Those are all direct boring. Okay. Yes, sir, so it would be underground.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. John, I'm kind of like to get right to it and not. We're getting a grant for roughly $3.5 million, correct?
From the FAA.
Correct.
Yes.
And the city is paying roughly $93,000 for it.
Correct. And the state is matching that share of
Okay.
$93,000.
So,
yes, sir.
And then I'm looking at the construction expenses were about 3.3 million or 3.4 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are we getting the entire 3.5 million? Are they cutting us a check for that, or are they waiting to see what our bills are?
There will be some quantities that will be adjusted after the project, so there is a little bit of a cushion there. That is what the actual grant award from the FAA is, that $3,539,500 that would be reimbursed to the city up to that amount as a maximum. The item that was not included in these expenses were the design expenses that were over $200,000 to design this project. So we needed to add that to the 3.4. So what we're seeing is we have a little bit more than $100,000 in what I would call some contingency funds.
Had we received a grant for those design funds at that
Yes,
time?
sir. That was included in this project.
Okay. My other question, same as the last one, is the $93,000 coming from airport or from general fund?
General fund, sir.
Thank you. If there's any leftover, does the leftover go to the general fund?
It's the grants are, please. No, after you, sir.
I say the grants are reimbursement grants, and so is the payment from the general
Okay, so
fund.
it's not like a scholarship where you spend it or not, or like that?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You don't get to keep the change.
It's still all our money.
John, since we're in the process of upgrading the master plan, are this project taken into consideration that as we grow the runway, that it can be added on without any further major changes?
Yes, sir, and that was confirmed by our design consultants as well, is that this will handle the future capacities that were identified in the master plan.
Okay. Anyone in the public? You have a motion?
Mayor, move to accept FAA 95% funding grant in the amount of $3,539,500 for the electrical improvement project at the Prescott Municipal Airport. Accept the ADOT 2.5% funding grant in the amount of $93,144.73 for the project. Award city contract number 2015-207 to Rural Electric Incorporated in the amount of $2,858,192.80. Approve authorization of services number 9 under city contract number 2014-029A9 with Dibble Engineering for construction phase services in an amount not to exceed $352,599. Authorize the performance of night work for the project, and authorize the mayor and city staff to execute all necessary documents to effectuate the foregoing items.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. When you're ready, item K.
Thanks, John.
Item K is the award of city contract number 2015-210 to Shepherd Westnitzer Incorporated for engineering services for the South Marina Street pavement and utility upgrade project in an amount not to exceed $129,140.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Steve Arrows, Public Works, and this is for the South Marina Street reconstruction project. The total project is about a quarter-mile long. There's also of road reconstruction, including the curbs and sidewalks. Also, there's about a quarter-mile of water main that's being reconstructed. The limits for the project are between Gurley and Goodwin. There's also a portion of Union Street that will be part of the project. As I think was a question on a previous concrete project, we will be looking at asphalt or concrete as a replacement to see which is the best suited for this part of the street system. We went through a procurement process and determined that SWI Engineers was the most qualified for this project. The design schedule is to have the project design completed first of the year, calendar year. The design fee on this one is 13.9%. It's a little higher than our average, which is about 9.8% for the last fiscal year. It's a smaller project. It's an older concrete street. There's a lot of unknowns underneath that concrete. It's an older part of town. So that's why it's a little bit higher than the average on this one. The funding for the project is from the Streets Fund as well as the Water Fund. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those for you today.
Council? No? Questions from the public?
Well, I sort of have one.
Go for it.
You say it's a little higher because we don't know what's under the streets and all that stuff. Does that mean we can anticipate, because we're paying up front a little higher, that we're not going to have change orders?
There's no guarantee that there won't be any change orders. But with the 20 potholes that we're doing in that 2-block area, we should be able to find what we need to ensure that the water line is put in with the least amount of, to minimize this disruption.
Well, thank you. You know how we all feel about change orders.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Yeah, I was just wondering on the, when you come up to Gurley on the right-hand side, there's all that parking in there. Does this project take in consideration that parking as well? Because I think a lot of it's dirt right now even.
It's a lot of it dirt. I believe there was a project the county just did to improve that area slightly, and that's part of our design is to figure out how the two projects blend at that point. So there'll be some coordination at that point.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Comments from the public? Motion?
I think you got one, Mayor.
Mayor, you
got I'm sorry.
All right.
You hooked one.
My name is Sandra Smith, 701 Whites Bar. You mentioned curbs and sidewalks?
Yes.
Yes, that needs done badly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Have a motion?
Mayor, I move to award city contract number 2015-210 to Shepherd Westnitzer Incorporated for engineering services for the South Marina Street pavement and utility upgrade project in amount not to exceed $129,140.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Vote, please.
Motion passes unanimously.
Hadamel.
Okay, I'm going to announce a correction on item L. On page 2 of the council memo, paragraph 1 should read Penn Avenue, Eastwood Drive, and not South Washington Avenue. The item is the award of city contract number 2015206 to Granite Basin Engineering Incorporated to provide engineering services for the Penn Avenue, Eastwood Drive Improvements Project in an amount not to exceed $477,620.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this project is for the reconstruction of the Penn and Eastwood streets south of Gurley for approximately 1.1 miles. Included in the project is about 3/4 of a mile of water main replacement, also sewer main replacement for the same amount of distance. Also, the project also includes a drainage evaluation along Penn and Eastwood due to the slopes in the area and the existing drainage issues that have been out there. One of the other elements of the project is to improve the dirt trailhead for Acker Park just at Hillcrest in coordination with the Parks Department. It was noted that a lot of debris comes down from that parking area onto Eastwood, so we'll be looking at improving that. That may also include consideration of a detention basin within the Acker Park area, and that will be, as part of the project, that'll be coordinated with the board to determine if that's a feasible or desirable option for the project. Sidewalks will be improved on the north end of the project in the Gurley area. During the procurement process, Granite Basin Engineers was determined to be the most responsive for this project. Their design schedule is to have the design complete late spring of next year. Their design fee was about 10.7% of the construction cost, which is right there in line with where we'd like to be. Funding for the project is from the Streets Fund, Water and Wastewater Funds, and we'll be exploring partial funding through Yavapai County Flood Control for any drainage improvements if they're included. Be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Steve?
Me? I'm first?
Yeah.
I always like being first. Question.
Yes.
I noticed on the map a couple of these proposed detention basins, and there's several on there. Is that taking in consideration the development that's uphill going on right now, Tenney Ranch and all those areas? And are the developers paying their share for these detention systems?
Yes, but not on this project. There's another project that we have in the works that we're negotiating the fee and scope on right now for that detention basin that is directly related to the development fees that were paid for that use up at the southern end of the park near the Tenney Ranch. These are optional basins that may be considered for additional detention to minimize the erosion down Eastwood and into town.
And the last question I would have is that knowing that we're making developers or requiring, I wouldn't say making, that's the wrong word, requiring developers to put in their share to do the drainage retention and the detention basins, are we, Joe, also going to have the Acker Trust pay for their share to those same detention areas? I know it's a different fund. You know, the Acker Trust and also the Acker Park are separate entities. They should be paying out of that fund into this as well. So have we looked at that?
Councilman Blair, the Acker Trust Board has been aware of these drainage improvements, especially on, not for this project, but on the other side of the hill with the Tenney Ranch development. But the Acker Trust monies, or the trust, is set up to fund parks and music for kids in the community. So no consideration's been made for a payment from the trust.
So there is not going to be any money kicked in from the
my understanding is that the trust is set up just to fund parks or music programs for kids.
Okay, I don't like it. You know, we keep talking about everybody paying their fair share, and I don't see where one should be over the other being treated differently, but I'll talk about that later.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple meetings ago, 2 different meetings, we talked about this machine that can put like a lining in the drainer.
That's correct.
Would that, if we had decided to do that, would that be used on this project?
Let's see, Joel? I believe the sewer line in this area is also an upsizing, so that would be not appropriate use of that CIPP device.
Okay, thank you.
Gene?
Steve, from the map we were given in the agenda packet, it's a little hard to tell what's being included in the project. So my first question is about Hillcrest. There are actually 2 drainages that come along and kind of converge where Hillcrest meets Eastwood. Right there, right. And is reconstruction of that short segment of Hillcrest included?
That
Looks
is.
like it is from your...
You can see the shaded area there that extends from Eastwood to the east. There is a low water crossing there that floods pretty consistently, so this project would be improving that area as well.
There has been some damage to the drainage structure, and will that be part of this project as well, to repair that?
Yes, that is correct.
Good. This is a really badly needed project. I don't know if any of you have been out there, but I walk it frequently, and when it rains, it really destroys everything. It's just, it's a gully washer all the way down both sides of the street. It destroys the pavement, and it's about time that we got on top of it, because it's just getting worse and worse, especially up near Nevada Drive where it makes that curve.
That's correct.
Goes by McDonald. That's just falling apart. It's getting really dangerous. My next question was about the alternative detention basin location. It appears that that is in Acker Park, and my question was whether or not the park trust restrictions would allow a detention basin there.
These 2 basins were the design engineer's initial concept of where basins could be considered. They've not been designed. It has not been coordinated with the Acker Park people, and all that's going to be part of this design project, is to determine, is one more desired than the other? No, we're not going to do a basin at all. What other improvements are there? So it's kind of a fluid part of the project right now.
So the design and consideration of the location are part of this project, but not the actual construction? Or the detention basins?
The detention basins may be constructed if the way is clear and everybody agrees that the Acker Park people say it's okay. We have the funding. We plan on designing it right now. Whether it's constructed with the project or not will come later when we identify the exact funding for that detention basin.
Okay, thanks.
Charlie?
Mayor, thank you. And Steve, thank you for the information.
Sure.
You know, anytime we get into professional services agreements, especially recently, there's been a lot of discussion about what's included, what's not, you know, how we get to 10% or 12% or 8%. I think it would be appropriate, especially now that we're about to get the budget behind us, to have a workshop and really have a discussion about how we're approaching our professional service agreements. Just as an example, I'd like to learn more about our decision to include PR firms in there instead of potentially doing some of that in-house. This contract has almost $9,000 for mailers and community meetings in it. Really would just like to be able to have that dialogue with the council and with Public Works to talk about that, but also put to bed some of the issues that we keep coming back to, which is, you know, why are we paying for certain things, and how do we get to professional service agreements over construction contracts and make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Sure.
So I'd like to see that happen sometime in the next month or two if possible. I just think it'd be of use. This is a much-needed project. The post-construction, post-design aspect, there's a lot to it because the as-builts are going to be significant. So I've got no problem approving it, but I do think that would help prevent misunderstandings in the future about what we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anyone else? Mark, a quick question. The last several meetings, we've been approving a lot of design and engineering projects. You got the money to build them?
Yes, they were part of the budget process and the 5-year planning process. So.
Okay. Anticipating 0.75% or 1%?
Of the ballot issues. The budget for 16 does not contemplate any of the issues passing. If they don't pass or do pass, we'll be doing adjustments as we get into the year so we're ready for the following years.
Okay. So some of these may not be funded until possibly even 17.
Well, they probably will not be constructed until into 17. The ballot issue related to streets not passing will affect the 5-year plan. It would not affect the 16 or 17 portion of that 5-year plan. So the effect of the ballot issue passing would be further down the road.
Okay. Steve, we're staying within our 5-year plan.
That's correct.
These are all moving forward at the proper.
Correct.
At the proper. Okay.
We did accelerate some of the design projects to get a head start on the 17 construction season to make sure that projects are delivered in a timely manner.
Okay. Anyone else? Comments from the public? Need a motion?
Mayor, move to award city contract number 2015-206 to Granite Basin Engineering Incorporated to provide engineering services for Penn Avenue Eastwood Drive Improvements Project in the amount not to exceed $477,620.
Second.
I do have a question.
Okay.
All right. Took me a while to contemplate what Mark just said with regards to the 5-year plan in the budget year 16. So I want to fully understand on the next item as we go through in the 5-year plan as you were putting forward. It's contemplated that we construct the roundabout?
Yes, that is part of the 5-year plan.
And if we approve the budget fully, we don't have an opportunity as that comes forward. You know, we've been going down a primrose here for the last couple of months, thinking we're going to have on single line item issues in the budget as they come forward is saying no. Am I hearing you say now that's not the case?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's included in the appropriation for the 16 budget year. When the contract comes forward for that project, the council will vote or consider that item. If that money, that appropriation is not spent on that item, it can be spent on whatever other items the council directs staff to bring forward.
Thank you very much.
To add to that, Jim, the design and engineering, stay with me, Craig, has been done. It's complete.
Nearly complete, right?
Yeah. So there will not be another item come forward for design and engineering of that project.
No, but that's just another one of those plans that we got back in the back room. But as it comes forward for going into construction,
yeah.
we can still say, well, hold on a minute, we don't need it yet.
It has not gone to bid yet.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Need a motion?
Yeah, I don't think that's.
There's a motion and a
We got it.
second.
Yep. Well, let's vote. Okay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item M.
Item M is a public hearing for the FY 2016 budget, expenditure limitation, and tax levies. At special meeting adoption of resolution number 43031512, adopting the final FY 2016 budget, expenditure limitations, city job roster, 5-year capital plan, and identification of unfunded capital projects.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is, as City Clerk Kim Webb said, this is the public hearing for the budget, expenditure limitation, and the tax levies. As we look at this, I wanted to point out the budget process this year. We've had approximately 10 workshops or meetings that we discussed budget-related items. The schedule is up on the screen. Been all over the board on different budget issues and different parts of the budget. The budget here before you for final consideration is the same as the tentative budget that was adopted earlier this month. It has a 2% increase in the operating portion related to certain operating fees that have gone up, and then capital is down significantly related to the flow of the capital, the 5-year capital project, for an overall budget being down $2.8 million at $148,423,862. The public hearing is followed by a special meeting where council will consider adoption of a resolution which includes the budget forms for the city of Prescott. We went over those in detail at the tentative budget adoption. Just wanted to look at 3 of those again real quickly as we go into this public hearing. Exhibit A, again, is a summary of the whole city with fund balance from prior years, total spending, total available, shown here at $222 million, and the budget for the year of the 148. Again, it's relatively small on the screen. This is available on our website. It is available. It was published in the paper Sunday the 14th and Sunday the 21st, both. The public hearing is also on the tax levies, both primary and secondary, and with that, part of the budget forms is Schedule B, which shows our maximum allowed levy for primary of $1.6 million and what we are proposing in this budget for a levy, and our rates for next year, both primary and secondary, for a total rate of 0.3047. Also included in the resolution per city charter is a list of all city positions that are included in this budget and their salary ranges. I won't go through that in detail, but that is in the packet for the public on our website and also in the council packet for review. Also in consideration is the 5-year capital plan for streets, water, and wastewater. Again, this is the first page of it. We went over it in detail on the workshop in May, the second budget workshop. That is part of this as well as adopting unfunded projects, mainly related to our rodeogram rehab, which the funds, of course, are just not there to do that significant project out there. So with that, as we've said, this is the public hearing, so I would open it up to questions from council or from the public related to the budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
We'll start with the council. Yeah.
Last meeting, Charlie wasn't here. Gene and had some concerns, and so did myself. Over the past couple weeks, talking to various constituents in the public, a lot in my church, and there's a big disparity, a problem with the roundabout. I am not a fan of the roundabout, and I expressed that at the last meeting. We're asking the public to consider 3 taxes, 2 very important taxes. And as much as we try to explain, the money from the roundabout cannot go to the PRSP. But I think in good faith, to show the public that we're listening to them, I don't think the roundabout should be on this budget. If it is, I'm going to vote no.
And just to clarify, Councilman, the budget, the roundabout was discussed in the plan, in the 5-year plan, and the total that we brought forward that's appropriated. As we mentioned earlier, the appropriation as part of this budget is not specifically identified.
I know,
as
Mark,
being
I
the
understand. And I understand that the money has not been spent, that it still has to come before council to be spent. But we're on a time frame here. We're up against a mountain of misinformation, and we need to get we need to stay focused. And the focus is, do we need the streets fund? Yes. Do we need the PRSP relief? Yes. And if we don't show that we're not listening, we're not going to get any of that. And I'm going to say no on the 2 point because of that money is in there. If we want to bring it back next year and then appropriate it then, but right now we've got to get over this mountain, and we're not going to get over it if we don't do that.
Jim.
Thank you. Very similar to Councilman Lazell, I have some significant questions with certain inclusions in the budget, and I've said that repeatedly. And I've been assured repeatedly that as each item comes up for expenditure, we can cut it. I'm pretty concerned with a number of things, and you know, very similar with what Greg is saying. I'm concerned with spending money out of Goldwater Lake. I'm concerned with spending money for a roundabout that may be premature, but now from what I understand, it's not just about a roundabout, it's about a whole project that's been in a 5-year, 10-year plan for major road construction and public safety issues out there around 89 and Willow Creek and all these other intersections. I agree with Greg that there's some things that just haven't been fully explained. I know that it's an expenditure limitation, but I also know, like Greg, or like all of them sitting here, if things don't happen, this is not a threat to the public or anybody else. If things don't happen conducive to doing certain things, come August 26th, we're all going to be up here hustling, trying to figure out what to do next. So I'll just leave it at that.
Gene.
Well, I'm also concerned about including $2.5 million from the Streets and Open Space Fund for the Pippin Roundabout, which is not needed at this time. Possibly in the future, when we're in the process of negotiating a development agreement and there is an actual development planned, proposed, on paper, presented to the city, we could reconsider it. But right now, it doesn't belong in this budget. That money should properly be allocated for open space acquisition, keeping in good faith with the voters who approved that in 2000, the 1% streets and open space sales tax. We've spent far less on open space than we should have. We spent far less than what was promised to the public by a council elected and in office in 2000. I would want to see that $2.5 million allocated to open space acquisitions in general, whether it's Goldwater or Granite Dells or some other part of a parcel that is actually in our 2009 open space plan. We have a plan. This council approved it, and I think we should follow through on it and put the budget where it needs to be.
Did it? Okay. Chris?
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to kind of go over a few things. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions on the whole roundabout issue, if that's what we're going to be stuck on. You know, currently the northern part of 89 is getting completed right now, and we're about to immediately start the realignment of Willow Creek Road. The next year after that, we will finish the southern section of Highway 89 from where Willow Creek ties in to 89A. That'll send 4 lanes directly into this roundabout. Where currently there's 2 lanes heading south, 1 lane heading north, and a lot of skid marks on the section heading south as they try and combine. We're going to toss even more traffic in there. Right now, the traffic on 89A is about 30,000 cars a day. It's only going to go up as this develops. Anything we can do to keep traffic off of that will keep it from failure, maybe a little bit longer. even though it is a state highway, city manager, you'll have to tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that section of Highway 89 from 89A into Prescott is the responsibility of Prescott for maintenance and operations. Even though it's a state highway, it's our section of road because of a turnback. And why we did that, I have no idea, because there's really not a lot of control that we want on that road, whereas opposed to the airport area, I think it's okay for us to do a turnback. Also, if that area does develop for side road connector, building that road will be the responsibility of the developer. Is that right or wrong? So that's correct as well. So when that develops, if it comes out, that will be the responsibility of the developer. We can wait. Can we wait 1 year, 2 year? Maybe. But it is something that's going to have to be completed just when you look at all the projects that are leading up to it right now.
Charlie?
Mayor, thank you. You know, unfortunately, I didn't get to participate in the 2 budget workshops, which are normally my favorite time of the year because we hammer out a lot of these details. And, you know, bottom line is, in that free time, I've been able to read every single line item that we have in our budget. Every department's request, every specific dollar that we want to spend, potentially spend, wait for the council to approve. In the budget today, we're setting forward policy that we're not incorporating pay increases. We're cutting back services in certain areas in order to ensure that we keep a balanced budget. We have a 5-year plan. I don't know where everybody was when it wasn't that long ago that we approved the engineering contract for the roundabout, or the last 5 years when we've approved the capital improvement plan related to the roundabout. Now, is it possible that this year is not a great year to build the roundabout? It's definitely a possibility. Even if we say we're not going to do it in 16, all we're going to do is push it off a year, 2 years, 3 years in the existing budget, which is keeping track with right where we've been. Whether it's this council or the next council, there's going to be a discussion about whether or not the roundabout at the Phippen Museum is going to be a reality. This is a budget that gives the city manager framework to say, here's your plan. This is your scope of work for the year. Go forth and make these things happen and come back to us for anything over $10,000 and get our approval. Do I like the budget? No, of course not. Every year, every single one of us has had an issue with something in the budget. But we're at a point today where we're either going to approve a budget and give a direction to our staff, or we're going to get stuck in the weeds on something that is very important. And please don't take me wrong. I think the roundabout discussion is extremely important. I have heard every single rumor under the sun in the last week about that roundabout and how it is going to ruin open space, or it's going to be a giveaway for a developer, or the city has no clue what it's doing and doesn't know how to manage its money. Let me ask this question, Mark. If we say in 5 months the roundabout comes up for a construction contract and then the council at the time says no, does this council or future councils have the authority to reallocate that within the streets fund if we want to go work on a specific street? Say, we're not going to spend that money. We've got another project that we need to focus our time and attention on. Our priorities have changed.
Yes, the action today, and I have Schedule E up on the form, which is part of the action at the special meeting, is the level of appropriation that's being adopted. So that $2.5 million for the roundabout is in the $32 million for the Streets and Open Space Fund. So that was part of the tentative budget. Council can reduce the tentative budget and reduce the appropriation to Streets and Open Space by 2.5. Or you can, as you point out, Councilman Arnold, you can leave the 2.5 in there, not do the roundabout, and reappropriate that for another streets project or for open space, whatever is allowed in that fund. And even if council, when it needed to move that appropriation, it's not the money, but the appropriation, that could be done also at a public meeting through the public process.
So what it comes down to is we're not actually talking about not spending $2.5 million in the Streets and Open Space Fund. We're talking about a title of a prospective project that's sitting in a 5-year capital improvement plan that happens to identify that project for the coming fiscal year.
Yes.
So, you know, a dear friend of mine today in passing said, don't vote for the roundabout, but fix our other streets. This council and future councils have the flexibility to make that decision. based upon what you just explained.
Yes, sir. Again, we're just adopting the $32 million Streets and Open Space Fund can be used for anything legitimate for that fund.
Okay. And in reading through this line item budget, we know that come October, November, December, January, regardless of the outcome of the tax measures, we or future councils are going to have to sit here and make some very significant decisions as to service levels and what we at the city of Prescott provide. Is that an accurate statement?
It is.
So from my perspective today, there are items that I will vote against when they come up for a vote in front of the council in the future, but I'm going to support the framework so that we can get to work and hash this out. And I think it would be prudent, specifically to the roundabout, before we bid it and go out to that discussion, let's put it as an action item, direct staff whether or not that's going to move forward. I don't think doing it today is appropriate, but I do think we need to have that as an agenda item, make that decision, and if the decision's to go forward, we bid it, we approve the contract, we build it, and if the decision is not to, then we come up with what our alternatives are, whether we're going to sit on the money, whether we have other projects that need to be done. That's my 2 cents on it. Again, I've heard every rumor possible, I think, to date about this roundabout. And it's something that we have been moving forward on for a very long time. And I think it needs to continue to move forward, but I don't necessarily think it's something we need to do.
I'm going to go ahead and take a turn.
Okay.
I think we've been around the horn. I think the biggest problem is it's named the roundabout. The roundabout is a very small portion of this project. If we had named it the 4-lane highway extension from 89A to the south, nearing Granite Dells, it would be part of a highway project that we know has to be needed. We all received a copy of the State Transportation Board approved 5-year construction program. A part of that construction program that ADOT is funding is State Route 89, State Route 89A to Deepwell Ranch Road, $15 million allocated in fiscal year 2017 for a corridor widening project that will improve capacity, operations, and safety. The roadway will be widened from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. What we are calling the roundabout is the extension of that highway to the south from 89A to the junction of where Phippen Museum is located, but also, and more important, is that in the open space program, when we designed and built and bought the land for Constellation Trail, which everybody acknowledges is the, Joe, and you could help me with this, is the busiest trailhead we have in our entire system. There was a parking lot designed for that, and that land is to the west of the highway, where we have no access at all now into the trail. So this is far more. We named it wrong. It got a bad name. It's been beat to death. And the fact is still, we have a commitment to build a parking lot for the Constellation Trailhead. We have an obligation to build a 4-lane road from 89A south to a roundabout that from that point on south through Granite Dells in none of our lifetime will ever be widened. So this 4-lane road has to terminate at some place, and it terminates at a roundabout that will then offer an opportunity to connect to the east with what will be a major construction project. And the road system within that project will be designed and built by the developers. So it got a bad name, it got a bad rep. We're continuing to beat it to death, but it's a major part of our highway system on the north side of town. And we have been working on the airport area plan for economic development for a long time, and this is a part of that plan. So I don't know why we're beating it to death. It's nothing new. It's a part of our overall system. It's in the budget. It's been in the budget for 5 years as a proposed project, and it will need to be built, and it will need to be tied together with ADOT's funding for that portion they're going to build through the airport area. We have a commitment for that. I think it's proper that the new council can make that decision. That's an appropriate decision for them. And when they look at the total program in that area, I don't think it'll be a hard decision. But we need to get it in perspective, and it needs to stay in the overall plan, and it can be finally approved by the new council. But we have no business of chopping up their work for next year. So that said.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, I would just want to say all due respect, I respect all the work you've done on this. I understand that this is a huge plan. Charlie, I agree with you. Gene, I'm not suggesting the 2.5 go to open space. It is a roundabout, and I agree that maybe that's the reason that it's gotten the bad reputation. I'm just saying that this patient's on the gurney, and it's flatlining. And if we put this in the plan, we're not going to see any support on the voters putting in those tax reliefs to us. Any chance at all, it's going to go out the window, my opinion.
Yeah. I have more confidence in Prescott Public. I really do. That once we put this out in the right form, that people understand it. They will understand the need for this just as great as any of the other initiatives that we have out there. I think it's a decision the public has an opportunity to make. Somebody else. Steve,
I'll be real quick about it. It's an appropriation, Mark. I appreciate it, you putting it that way. And I do appreciate the fact that there's going to be a new council here in November. It's basically a marker in a budget that's a huge budget. We've been through another huge budget this year that we didn't use a very small portion of any of that that we proposed to do. Every year it's the same way. It's to give us the opportunity, if that opportunity comes before us, that we have the money set aside to do it. Do I think it's necessary right now? No, I don't. Do I think it should go in concert in 2017 with the state's project? Yes, I do. But I think we're a year ahead of the horse, and maybe that's just the way it works. Maybe we won't spend it at all, and it'll be a carry-in to 2017. But the bottom line is that specific project is going to get aired out and be heard by the public and heard by a new council, and that indeed is the way it should be. So I will support the budget, but I don't necessarily support the roundabout.
It can be, the next council can move it into 17. That's done all the time, but you don't take it out of the program.
Well,
just because you want to change the time.
I think the case was very well stated. This is not new. This council's looking at it, but the council before this council looked at it in the planning stages of a 5-year plan. So it's not the first time this has been talked about. And for people to act like, oh my God, you know, what's been thrown in front of our plate right now is just wrong. There's a big debate to be said that people that look into the future, like Simpo and all the other people, planning road infrastructure, planning like our Public Works does, underground infrastructure, it's called long-range planning. And is it appropriate to do long-range planning? My comment is yes, it is. We're doing that with the airport right now. We're doing that with a lot of different things. And 10 years from now, when we look back at this, we'll say, why'd we spend so much time on this stupid thing?
Gene.
Well, I take exception to the statement that this is just a placeholder or a marker. Once we adopt this budget with this item in it for the side road connector roundabout, the Fippen roundabout, that's a green light to staff to begin working on putting this out to bid and spending a lot of time. So there would be staff time invested in bringing to the council the decision to let the contract. That would be the first time we see it. And that's why I object to having it in the FY16 budget. I think it should be out of there and put in the general, the fund balance, or preferably in the open space fund. I think there are other more cost-effective designs. If there is a safety issue there, have we considered a turning lane and lowering the speed limit? There are many, many 4-lane highways that converge into 2-lane highways all across the state. Highway 89 north of Flagstaff is a good example. There are portions of that are 4-lane, and they go down to 2-lane, and they go back to 4-lane and 2-lane and 4-lane. It just depends on the topography and the density of population and the side roads that come in and out of it. I don't see why we can't lower the speed limit going south of 89A. That's where the curves and hills start, and you start entering treed areas with narrow rocks and getting into the dells proper. And that's something that should occur north of where this roundabout is planned. So I'm going to vote against this budget if it still includes the money for the roundabout, $2.5 million in FY16.
Okay. Jim?
Thank you. As I previously stated, the proposed budget is an expenditure cap. We can take away from it, but we can't add to it. We can't come up with new things to stick in there. I appreciate all the work that the staff has come up with. I'm not an engineer. I don't like roundabouts. But that doesn't mean that from a public health and safety standpoint, that's not the recommended deal. And at the time that it comes up for a vote, a council that's sitting here is going to have to make a decision, is that the best thing that's going to be going on? So I'm going to support the budget. There's just things in the budget I don't like, and I'll have that opportunity tomorrow. I can say no when this comes forward or that comes forward. I've been assured that over and over and over. This is an expenditure cap. It's not we're going out to spend the money today.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is going to be the last thing I say on this, and I'll be done with it. But, you know, if you can't just add a turn lane, you can't drive out there with the equipment and do it. There's still the engineering, there's still the site assessments. You're also going to have acceleration lanes, deceleration lanes. You're still going to have that parking lot over there. I mean, once you get done with all that stuff, you're looking at probably 1.5 to 2 million just for itself. And I'm going to try and show something on this screen over there, and I'll see if it's possible.
Family photos?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You know, you guys kind of put me in charge of working on the whole road things by putting me on SIMPO, and I tell my wife, I go, thank you for supporting me in this, because you don't know who it is, and they don't even know who it is, but because of the road work that's being done on 89 and you supporting me getting this done, we've saved somebody and probably multiple people's lives. We read in the newspaper about the crashes, the head-on collisions that are separated by a double yellow line of impacts of going anywhere from 55 to 65 miles an hour in each direction. Combined crashes, it's killing people, it's mangling people, it's changing people's lives. I went out to where the 2 lanes turns into 1 lane going towards the Phippen roundabout. That's what this picture's showing. And remember, cars don't leave skid marks like they used to because of anti-lock brakes now. So these are just the old cars that are really coming into this intersection. Right here is the double yellow line. My favorite skid marks are these 2 skid marks going right into oncoming traffic. All these other ones are close calls. And this is just a fraction of what's happened out here. The clock is ticking on this intersection. If it is not fixed, we will read about a fatality at this intersection. And I have to keep pushing for this, because when I read about that in the newspaper, I don't want that on my conscience, because this is a bad intersection. It does need to be improved, and a picture says 1,000 words, and we need to look at that. What if your loved one was coming the other way when this car went skidding into oncoming traffic at 65 miles an hour?
I would suggest that 2 years ago when the Constellation Trail was being built, I was standing right there when George Sheets' wife was hit at that very area and sent her to the hospital and destroyed her car. So I appreciate what you're saying. We often forget those things as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Charlie?
Yep. Mayor, just in follow-up to the conversation, and I think obviously staff's hearing that there's dissension on the roundabout. Surprise. I do think it's reasonable, because we are, by approving this budget, also setting forth policy that prior to staff expending the time and effort to go through a bid process, that this item come back for council approval, whether or not to move it forward. I think that's reasonable. Because again, you look at the budget we approved last year, how many projects that were in there didn't come to fruition during this fiscal year or got pushed off because of design issues? It's common. I mean, that's part of the system that we have to deal with. We have state obligations to meet in the budget. Again, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, let's build a roundabout at Phippen, but I'm certainly saying I don't want to take away the opportunity for that discussion to move forward and the right decision to ultimately be made.
Okay,
so
we're going to go to the public. Comments from the public? Hi, Jerry. How are you?
So hot.
Good.
By the time, Mr. Mayor, I'm Jerry Smith-Panara, 405 Park Avenue for over 50 years, and Park Avenue for 74 years. By the time you came to town, Mr. Mayor, I already had a year-old child and was in my mid-20s. I just wanted to say this, and I really mean this. We have tourism people here that are being paid here. The biggest thing we've got going for us in this area is open space for tourism. People aren't coming here to go to Disneyland. They're coming here to see the beauty of the area, et cetera, et cetera. And I just had a kidney transplant, so I'm kind of under the weather, but I've had every one of the meetings here in planning and zoning, et cetera, for the last year and a half taped for me. And I've got to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, I've watched this whole thing. Figures lie and liars figure. And I do not believe by changing it from roundabout to something else makes any difference. We all know we have zoned in far too many developments for the water. We are draining our groundwater and nobody seems to care. I even saw a few months ago a developer that's just about to start want to make it more dense in his development. This is just insane, and I don't think anybody's really listening. I spend part of my time in Seattle and all over Washington State. I do not fly. We drive through California and everywhere else. If you don't think we don't have a water problem, you haven't seen anything. And I'm telling you, you could call it a roundabout, you could call it Jack in the Box, you could call it anything you want. But this shouldn't be happening, and we should be doing things for open space. And every one of you know this. And I'm a person that's lived here longer than any of you by far, over 74 years. And I have just seen some shameful things happen. We must have more open space. And in past things, my father lived in the head hotel with Mr. Acker across the hall for 2.5 years. I know what he wanted that land done for, and past city councils have sold a lot of his property off that he wanted kept as open space and neighborhood parks. So I'm telling you, I think it's insane to have this. Call it a roundabout, call it anything. But to do this without doing more open space, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. You really are. And I'm really ashamed.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Anyone else? Good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Seeley. I live in Yavapai Hills. Excuse me. Mayor, I think the issue is people want the 4-lane road. The issue is the roundabout itself, as opposed to a traffic light that has demand on either corner, where the traffic light essentially, if you drive out on that road, there is very little traffic coming from the Pippin Museum, And the trailhead, you said itself, is fairly large, but most of those people are going to be making a right to go south back to Prescott. The thought of having a roundabout that people out here generally don't like because they're not familiar with them, they get issues. I've been on roundabouts, going 3/4 around, and I pay real close attention when I make that last turn, because you would be surprised how many people don't understand that they're supposed to yield. And a 4-lane road at 60 miles an hour going into a roundabout is absolutely crazy. Just a traffic light makes much more sense with a demand on one side or a demand on the other to click the light red. Roundabout is just, people are upset about the roundabout itself, not the 4-lane road. It's that traffic device that they don't like.
Okay. Well, what we're talking about is funding for a 4-lane road that has to terminate somewhere. And if the following council wants to put a light there, they can do that.
And I believe that probably will occur.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I think we're going to have a good council. Who else? Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Dick Kennett, live on St. Charles in Prescott. I've got a couple of questions, and I don't have a problem with a roundabout per se, okay? But you mentioned there's going to be a 4-lane road as part of this development. But is that 4-lane road going to go all the way from 89A into Prescott to where the other roundabout is there?
No, it has to there's no way to get through Granite Dells with a 4-lane road.
That's what I was thinking. So we're still going to have a 2-lane road part of the way in.
Yeah, but you've got to
transition.
You've got to transition from a 4-lane to a 2-lane some way.
Yeah, but I agree with that completely. But there's ways to address that, speed limits, that sort of thing, which can be done where it is now. And I understand the problems of that going to a 2-lane where it is now, but you're going to have the same problem when you get to the Dells. So how are you going to fix that? That's an issue that needs to be addressed as well.
Don't mention you want to do 4-lane through the Dells.
No, I know. I didn't think you would, but you're still going to have the same problem, 4 to 2, okay?
It's got to transition.
I'm wondering what reimbursement mechanism is available to the council if you do put in a roundabout there to get money from the FIPN and the future development to the east or west. What mechanism do you have to get
west will be our own development. That's our parking lot for the...
Okay, well, let's go east then, okay?
Yeah, the east someday will develop to the east.
Yeah, what mechanism do you have to make them contribute to the cost of that roundabout, including increases in costs, interest, that sort of thing that may incur in the interim?
Yeah, I think our plan was to get off the highway and then they pay to get there. That's what.
So there's no way to get them to pay for that roundabout?
I don't know that we've ever had anybody pay for a roundabout. The roundabout on down at Willow Lake Road, when that was done, and that solved a major problem there. I traveled
there's some very definite reasons to put it there. I mean, there's no question about it. But FIPN, I don't think, justifies a roundabout by itself.
Probably not today, but in the future.
FIPN doesn't.
Something to the east will.
The new development will. I don't disagree with you there. The new development will. But they should pay for that. I don't see moving 4 lanes, a quarter mile, is going to make any difference for public safety. So to me, I agree with Jane and this gentleman over here. Take it out of the budget or leave it in for some other reason. I understand you can say you can kick the can down the road. That often doesn't work. I've been in public government situations for a very long time before I moved to Prescott 10 years ago, and I know how things work. And I think the tax issue, this is going to be a big deal. And as I say, I don't care. Roundabouts are fine with me. I think I kind of like them, but this is not a time to put it in the budget, okay? And I would look at that. Now, also, one other quick question. Does the parking lot construction for the Constellation Trail included in the roundabout?
Is it? I'm sorry.
Is it included in the roundabout?
Yes,
We're calling it the
and
roundabout.
the 4-lane road.
Okay, so they'll put the parking lot in for the Constellation Trail?
That's all part of this budget item. It's one item.
Well, that's good, but still, I'd take it out for now.
And Mayor, to clarify, the Willow Lake roundabout is 4 lanes coming into a roundabout, exiting to 2. So that's an example. That's an older design of a roundabout. So the new ones are quite different. And the gentleman brought up another point, but I'm at a loss. There was a something I was going to explain along with that, but it'll come to me.
Okay. Anyone else?
My name is Daniel Matson. I live over on Merritt Street, and as I'm sure you guys on the council know, though, there's a lot of people in town who know that I keep up with all this stuff, so of course they want to talk to me about it. I have heard so many people say that including this roundabout makes them feel like they should not vote for the taxes. That if you guys have $2.5 million to waste on a roundabout that's not necessary now, then they're going to vote no on the taxes. And I try to explain to them that we need those taxes and that that $2.5 million is indeed an expenditure cap. They're not buying it. I haven't heard anybody at all say that putting that $2.5 million in the budget is a good idea. I agree with Greg. If you have this in the budget, you're going to lose the street tax, possibly the public safety tax. I think taking it out of the budget would be the wise thing to do because we don't have that long to make a turnaround in the public relations case here. If we take it out of the budget here and now, I think that would go a long way toward getting people to say, okay, they're using the money wisely, let's go ahead and vote yes. If you leave it in, I don't think you're going to be able to turn around the public relations misunderstanding. Because, you know, I've been following the budget for Prescott for several years now. And by the way, I've always said I don't think that's a good idea to put that roundabout there, but that's a different issue. From what I hear from the citizens, if you have this $2.5 million roundabout in the budget, you're going to have an awful lot of people voting no. And for that reason alone, I think it would be wiser to just take it out. You'll have less problems in the long run. You're not likely to build it this year anyway, just because there's not the justification for it. And when the day comes that you have the discussion here, you're going to have them lining up out the doors to say, heck no. I've talked to a lot of people who say they don't want the roundabout. I have yet to hear anybody in the public say they like it. So I think it would be a very good idea to just take that $2.5 million out, lower the 148 to 145.9, and you know, let the public think, okay, we're listening to you. We want this street tax because we need the money to keep our streets up. We're not wasting it on a roundabout to a museum, because that's how it's looked at.
Yeah. Dan, do you think there's an obligation to build the road to meet ADOT's construction?
Well, but again, the likelihood that you're going to be able to pass the street tax with this there. I have heard so many people say that $2.5 million turns their possible yes vote into an absolute no. And we can put that in next year. We can discuss it next year. We can discuss doing it another way. The conversation needs to happen, because a lot of people think that you're giving this money to, I mean, and I've heard this, you're giving this money to some contractor as some quid pro quo or something. I've heard all kinds of conspiracy theories about it. I've heard a lot of people say that this is going to give them a no vote on the tax. I haven't heard anybody say they think it's a good idea. I think it would be wisest to just take this $2.5 million out of the budget, and you're going to have all these people go, they are listening to us, and you're going to get rid of that public relations problem, because that's essentially what we have here. We're trying to convince people that these taxes are necessary and that we're being very careful with what they spend. And most of these people don't understand that this is an expenditure cap. And I know, I mean, what was it that we actually spent last year out of the actual expenditures? 109 out of 170. Okay, $61 million wasn't spent. I get that. You guys all get that. Most of the people out on the street don't have a clue to that. They figure if that $2.5 million is in the budget, you're building a roundabout this year to go into a museum. And they're wondering whose pocket you're lining. And that's what I keep hearing people say, and it's very hard to convince them otherwise. We've got 2 months to convince them, And I don't know that we're going to be able to do it in 2 months if that's in the budget. If it's taken out of the budget, I think we make it a lot easier to convince people that they should vote yes on the tax. So for that reason, I highly recommend that you just take that $2.5 million out and save a lot of problems.
Okay. Steve?
I've got a question. I mean, just, this is all about how people perceive things, and I agree with what Greg said because I've heard the same thing. From my standpoint, 2 questions. Number one, City Manager and Mark Woodfill, we made the comment that in that streets and open space budget, there's money. We can go ahead and take the $2.5 million out. The project from ADOT's 2017, that gets us halfway through 2017. If we need money prior to that, and if it becomes a necessity for the new council to look at, we have ways that we can find funds in the end of 2016 and then put the remaining funds in 2017 to complete the roundabout if it's necessary, do we not?
There is a fund balance, as we talked about at the second budget workshop in May, in that fund. If council chooses to reduce the appropriation in streets and open space by 2.5, and later on that needs the additional monies, part of that fund balance needs to be used for other road projects or for open space or whatever is legitimate purpose of that fund, appropriation through the public process can be moved from some other fund that isn't going to use the appropriation. Again, that's budget appropriation, not funds.
City Manager, would it hurt anything to take out the $2.5 million in this budget year and then as we move forward look at it and try to piecemeal it if it becomes necessary?
Well, as we've said many times, the money stays in the fund. We've talked about what a budget really is. It's setting of an appropriation. We've talked about the implementation of the budget is through subsequent decisions. But in a restricted purpose fund, and the Streets and Open Space Fund is a restricted purpose fund, the money can only be used for the designated purpose, which is streets and open space. And so if a project is taken out, you can do that, well, really in a couple of ways. You can actually just strike the project and it doesn't exist anymore, or you can place the project in a future fiscal year, or you can put a check and balance in there that, the budget's the budget, and whether this project ever gets implemented will be determined by a council at some time in the future by council action. So there are all kinds of possibilities on how to handle it here, but the money stays in the fund for streets and open space purposes. It's not lost. It can be reappropriated.
I appreciate that, but just for conjecture from my standpoint, ADOT's approving the money in 2017. I think we should take out $2.5 million, kick it into 17, and be done with this conversation.
So, Steve, just for clarification, in that proposal, you would essentially move that to unassigned and then move the project to 17 and allow it to be
to be mirrored with ADOT's if it becomes necessary that the council approve. The new council would approve that.
If that was the majority consensus, I could probably live with that. Comment?
I agree with that.
Okay. What is the process?
I would defer to legal, but I believe we'd finish the public hearing, hear from the rest of the public. After they close the public hearing, we can go to a special meeting. We could adopt the resolution making those amendments as part of the motion.
Okay, I second that.
Okay, so we will, anyone else in the public? Okay, we're going to.
I think you got one.
Sorry. Okay.
My name is Judith Merrill, 1252 Sierra Peaks Drive, here in Prescott. I am amazed at the number of times that I've heard people in this meeting refer to the streets and open space money. But you only talk about using it for streets. You never talk about using it for money. Even you now say take out this $2.5 million and use it for money, but you said, well, there is this streets and open space money. We could use it for roads. We could use it for the roundabout and maybe open space. You don't care about open space, but we voted for open space money. And I don't want you to do what you suggested and kick it down the road for roads. I want some of this money applied to open space. If you take it out of the roundabout, I want at least the possibility of some open space to be purchased with this. A couple of weeks ago, an economist spoke at Embry-Riddle, and he said Prescott should capitalize on what Prescott's got, which is beauty and which is tourism. He said tourists are not going to come because we've got a bigger airport or because we've got another Costco or another Walmart. They come because we've got the Dells and because we've got trails and because we've got beauty. And we should be capitalizing on that. So this open space issue is not just because some people like to hike, it's because people from outside the area come here because of what Prescott has got. One of the things I'd like to see you put back in this budget is what Ms. Wilcox talked about 2 weeks ago when she proposed some monies for a purchase on the west side of the Dells. And the more time that goes by that you're kicking this down the road, the more this open space becomes unavailable. This is not something that just is going to continue to be available. I'm begging you to do this. I'm begging you also to think about what you're doing to the Prescott area by all of the development that you approve. There is no water. We all know there's no water, and yet you keep approving more developments. I own some land in Taos. That area has put a moratorium on building until they can cope with the problems with more building. I'm asking you to put a moratorium on building. And I'm asking you to, especially, you talk just grandly about there's going to be a big road going to the east, there's going to be a lot of development. I know it's talking about thousands of houses. We don't have water for those houses. And there's no reason why I, as a taxpayer, am being asked, either now or 2 years down the road, to pay for some development, for some developers' increased wealth, which will destroy what we have in Prescott and what people come here for. So I'm asking you to slow down on development until we get something to do with water. Unless you can invent water, I don't see how you can get more water. I'm asking you to look at the term streets and open space as some sort of equality instead of just streets and maybe a little open space. And I'm asking you to, if you can keep, I'd be happy to have this $2.5 million left in if it was clear it was for open space, or if you just would realize that you're spending money in such an imbalance. And I'm asking you to do what Ms. Wilcox asked 2 weeks ago, because that's a logical thing to do with land that's available now and might not be available later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, Mayor, the council can close the public session, you adjourn, and then you re-adjourn into the special meeting for discussion and consideration of approval.
Got it. Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay. The public meeting is closed. We're adjourned.
Do we vote on that motion, Mayor?
Do we need to vote on?
We got to ungavel that.
On closing the meeting, public hearing?
Yeah, we have to.
You want to vote? Yeah. We're not adjourned.
Motion passes
Turn your lights on.
unanimously.
There we go. Okay, now we're going to open the council meeting. Let me get my stuff here.
Do we need to do a roll call or anything?
Yeah, I think we'll need a roll call. No? Call to order.
Just call to order. Okay.
All present.
Mayor, I'm prepared with a motion,
Okay.
if you will.
The clerk should probably read the item on the special meeting agenda, the resolution.
Title of the resolution.
The resolution title.
Yeah, on our special meeting here, we're called to order and then consider the adoption of the budget. Okay.
The adoption of resolution number 43031512, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, determining and adopting final estimates of proposed expenditures for fiscal year 2016, declaring that the same shall constitute the budget for the city of Prescott for said fiscal year, establishing the expenditure limitation, approving and updating the job roster for the city of Prescott, adopting the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2017 through 2021, and setting forth its determination as to unfunded capital and other unfunded budgetary requests.
Okay.
I think Charlie's got a...
Nobody's lights on. You want to talk?
No, I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
Mayor, move to adopt Resolution 4303-1512, removing the Fippen Roundabout from, what would be the best term, John? I had a term in my head, but it escaped me.
I would think you'd want to say to remove the Fippen Roundabout from the fiscal 2016 appropriation for the Streets and Open Space Special Revenue Fund, and reducing the expenditure limit for fiscal 16.
Okay.
Holy cow.
No, don't want to go, the clarification is, so move to approve the resolution and move the Fippen Roundabout programming to 2017. Would that accomplish it?
Along with Mark's formal language that the clerk can incorporate in. Did you get that? Going to do that again?
We're leaving, just to be clear, we're leaving it unassigned in the budget, in the whatever, in the capital budget under the Streets and Open Space Fund. But we are removing the roundabout from the 2016 budget.
And moving it to 7.
Right, so we're reducing the appropriation in that fund in
I'm
16.
not proposing to change the cap.
Well, you have to reduce the appropriation, since the appropriation is tied to a particular project, the appropriation is then reduced by that $2.5 million. So the money stays in the Streets and Open Space Fund, but it's unappropriated money at that point.
So you want to move the project but leave the appropriation? Is
Leave
that
the
what you're saying?
appropriation, but move the project.
So you would be moving the project in the capital, the 2000 to the 17 and the 2017 through 21 capital improvement plan.
Yes.
Correct.
Well,
how are you going to?
so we'll leave the appropriation there for
Right,
council to determine if it's other road projects.
The line item appropriation or no?
Or open space.
They want to leave the appropriation for other possible fund.
Basically unassigned, you know.
I agree with that.
I don't see see the need to reduce the cap, but I just move the roundabout to 17. So to clarify, my motion is to adopt resolution 4303-1512 to move the roundabout project to the capital improvement plan 2017 through 2021. And that's it.
Okay.
So that's taking it out of the expenditure for this next
So leaving it undesignated in the current year budget.
Could you clarify that? What does it mean, undesignated?
It means it's still in the streets.
It would still be available for the council to direct in fiscal 16 to be used for other road projects.
That's within that.
Within that fund for road projects or open
Or
space.
open space.
Yes.
It's undesignated streets and open space appropriation.
Okay.
Is what probably
I'll second that.
budget.
Motion in a second.
Did we get a second?
I did. I second.
Okay, let's have discussion, another opportunity. Anything on the council?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Well, I can support the motion as long as it's undesignated for streets and open space, because that is the restricted purpose of the fund. So if the council during the next fiscal year is presented with a compelling, wonderful offer to sell open space, property to the city or to acquire an easement, the council can consider it.
Or a neighborhood with crumbling streets.
Correct.
Well, let's make one thing clear here. ADOT's committed funding for 2017 includes the road project, which is critical to the airport plant.
Yes.
You want the city to be able to commit our portion of that project in 17, the same year they do.
Correct.
Now, would that take, let's say the money was spent in this fiscal year for some of the purpose. You would have to reappropriate the money for this project in 2017.
Yes, we appropriate each year. We adopt a 5-year plan that shows the planning, but the appropriation is considered each year through the series of workshops that we're just concluding.
Okay. Was a part of your motion that project be moved to 2017?
Yes.
Did we understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be brought forward as an appropriation in next year's budget for discussion and debate through that whole process.
And likely will garner a bunch of attention during the budget process to get to a final conclusion.
Public comments? Seeing none? That's a thumbs up, right? Okay. Let's vote.
Item passes unanimously.
You have a budget. Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Monty Python.